variety of cultural institutions than in the past, reliable, safe, and sustainable transportation, and universal access to high-speed broadband. Vision 2 is our just and equitable city, in which we will have an inclusive, equitable economy that offers well-paid jobs and opportunities for all New Yorkers. We will lift 800,000 New Yorkers out of poverty by 2025, reduce premature mortality, and decrease racial and ethnic disparities, and increase residents' median incomes. Some of the goals and initiatives in support of Vision 2 include a commitment to early childhood with programs like UPK, which I'm sure all of you have heard of, baby-friendly hospitals, integrated social services, which includes utilizing libraries and other centers as community hubs. So those are already there and they're underutilized. I want to make sure the community can utilize them at all times of day. And continuing to administer ID NYC, which has a number of benefits across ages and interest groups. Hopefully people in this room have an ID NYC card. Healthy neighborhoods, such as building healthy communities program, physical exercise promotion, training and nutrition and community safety, healthcare access, criminal justice reform, and the continued rollout of Vision 0, which I know is very important to this particular board. Vision 3 is our sustainable city, in which we will be the most sustainable big city in the world and a global leader in the fight against climate change. In order to do that, we'll move forward with a number of initiatives, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050, sending zero waste to landfill by 2030, and mitigating neighborhood flooding, which is a big problem in certain communities. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this slide because I know sustainability is a big issue that people care about in the sports. I'm just going to touch upon some of these a little bit more deeply. So in order to limit temperature increases this century to just 2 degrees Celsius and to avert the worst effects of climate change, as called for in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, we will need a 50% reduction in global emissions by mid-century and up to 80% reduction in developed countries. So we signed on to meet that goal. In September 2014, we committed to that goal of 80 by 50. The city's emissions have already dropped 19%, nearly 2/3 of the way toward the intermediate goal of reducing 30% by 2030. Nearly 3/4 of New York City's greenhouse gas emissions today are attributable to energy used in our buildings and how they're operated. Vehicles and emissions from decomposting solid waste make up the balance. So we're coming up with action plans to reduce waste from all of these different channels. Our transportation initiatives will strive to reduce 70 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions from cars and trucks on the streets by 2050. We pledge to expand multimodal transit, increase the number of electric vehicle charging stations, and then clean the government's fleet. So actually all the cars, as you can imagine, many cars that are driven by city workers, cleaning that fleet up is very important as well. For zero waste, we'll include expanding organics to pick up to all New Yorkers instead of just the pilot neighborhoods we have now, and offering single-stream recycling, making all schools zero waste. And nitrogen buildings will also have access to recycling. Finally, commercial waste will be reduced by 90% by 2030 through initiatives to study commercial waste collection and conducting periodic waste audits for large commercial buildings. Vision 4. And that's our resilient city, with our neighborhoods, economy, and public services ready to withstand and emerge stronger from the impacts of climate change and other 21st century threats. This vision takes a broad definition of resilience and not only considers the physical environment, but also the social cohesion of a community. We want to make sure that our people have the supports they need to be resilient and create stronger neighborhood fabrics. By 2050, we will eliminate the long-term displacement of New Yorkers from their homes due to disaster-related events. I can tell you, having been very intimately involved in Hurricane Sandy, it is devastating to not be in your home for sometimes. We want to make sure when the next disaster comes that we're able to accommodate and have people not displaced as long. We'll make the neighborhood stronger and reduce the economic losses resulting from the climate-related events. Sandy was a $19 billion event here in New York. To support Vision 4, we will strengthen our neighborhoods, buildings, infrastructure, and coastal areas to adapt to and withstand the impacts of climate change. You've probably heard about some of the larger initiatives, such as Lower East Side coastal protection measures that are happening at $300 million downtown. There's other initiatives that are very substantial across the city. So as you can see, we have an ongoing accountability plan to keep us on track, and importantly, there has to be yearly updates to the plan. So we actually have to report out for everyone to see how we are tracking against our different goals and initiatives. So we're doing all of this to ensure that we're prepared for the future of the city. Thank you for your time. I hope I kept to my 10 minutes and we can open up the floor to a few questions.
We have time for a few community questions and a few board questions. A question about the plan?
Elizabeth, Howard has a question over here.
I'm sorry?
Howard has a question.
Yes, I just wanted to see if there was anyone from the community first who had a question. If not, board members? Howard?
I don't think there's any city initiative that meets all four of your objectives more. Can you hear me?
Your mic is already on, sir.
Whatever. That fulfills all four of your objectives for the mass transportation. I think that is the one thing the city can do that can most affect all four of those goals you have. So I was just curious if you could elaborate a little more what the city's goals are for mass transit.
Well, it's not an expertise, I don't have expertise in that, but what I can say is that we are in continuous discussions with our regional partners, with the MTA, with other entities, to try to improve some of those transportation challenges. Particularly, I know that increasing the SBS, so this like bus service in other areas is a big concern, because we want to have people within reach of affordable jobs or jobs that they can get. So we want people within 45 minutes of a million jobs, which that is not the case in some of the other areas of Brooklyn, as you can imagine, where there's very little transportation. So the things within the city's control we're working on, and obviously we have to work with our partners, such as, I know that there's something in the plan where we're very interested in a different, or a new subway line, as an extension of Utica Avenue extension, that will go to the underserved part of Brooklyn, but obviously we need our MTA partners to work with us on that. I can tell you, I was in charge of Second Avenue Subway for the last administration, and it's very difficult sometimes to get the MTA to do what you need them to do in a timely manner. So, but we are in constant communications about ways to improve transportation overall for the city.
That sounds like a great topic that perhaps the Transportation Committee and Dan and Andrew, who are co-chairs of the committee, may have something to say about. I don't know if you have something to say about it, but certainly would make a great topic for a future committee meeting.
Yeah, I would just add that the second one Howard said, mass transit is the key to almost everything else you want to do, and the greatest thing the city could do to improve mass transit would be to make a meaningful contribution to the MTA's capital plan, which, as I'm sure you know, is shy of the amount needed to do the job for everybody and provide enough service for everybody, since we're at a record 6 million riders a day on the subways alone now. So I would put in a pitch for a capital plan contribution.
Some Vicky over here, and then Ken.
I think one of the things that makes New York so unique is the wide variety of small mom and pop shops. We're losing them daily. I think that really hurts us as a metropolitan area, hurts us as a world city. So I wonder what you're thinking about in terms of trying to support small stores, support innovative types of stores, and keep us from becoming like the Mall of America.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure what the small business components are of the plan, but I'm happy to have SBS give a briefing on that to the appropriate committee.
BCI chairs, George, Michelle.
Yes.
This is you, so hopefully they'll come back and report to you, or we can have somebody from your staff maybe come into our BCI committee. It's great.
I think the 80% reduction in greenhouse gases is a laudable goal. I don't see how we're going to reach it if we don't reduce the number of vehicles that are coming into the city. And as long as we're putting out pitching for things, one way to do that is the Move New York plan, which would raise tolls and put tolls on some bridges and reduce tolls on other bridges to make it more equitable all over the region. So, and it would also generate as much as $1 billion a year for mass transit, which every year. So, take a picture of that.
Great. Are there any other remaining questions? I think, Jeanette? final question from the board.
With the guiding policy plan, it all sounds good. How will the community and how will the community be involved in an ongoing process, and what sort of support how can the community board, our community board, be involved in making this happen?
Well, there are 199 initiatives within the plan, and each of them is assigned to a city agency, one or more city agencies. Those agencies are tasked that, and our sort of mechanism for following along with what's happening will be available in some format for you to actually see how we're doing along the lines. And also, you can always contact me or somebody from our staff to find out about a particular initiative. If there's ways that Community Board 7 can be particularly involved in something they really care about, we'll make sure that agency is in touch with you. Because that's one of the things we want to do is the plan is get as much feedback as possible. This is a living document, so if there are ways that we feel the community can be particularly helpful in an initiative, we want to definitely work with you to make sure that happens.
And what's the timeline for that? For us, we'd like to take some of these pillars back to our committees and have representatives as you direct us to the transportation, to the DCI, to other committees. What is the timeline for that?
Well, this board actually is one of the first ones we've done in this phase, so now is a good time because then we can drill down to the community, to the agencies and have them go to the next month's committee meetings when appropriate.
Okay, so by the October committee meetings that we have, hopefully we can have representatives.
October, November at the latest, but probably
Okay.
October, November.
Great.
Finally.
Okay, great. Richard, I think you have the last question. Have you?
Yeah, she stole my question.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you to your staff and everyone for joining us tonight. It's really incredibly informative. Okay, so with this in mind, we're going to move on the agenda tonight. The next item is just a brief chair's report that I'd like to deliver. I told people I know we have a very packed agenda and that I cannot guarantee that we will get everyone out before Serena and Venus enter their third set for the US Open, but I can hopefully guarantee that we will get everyone out of the room before Stephen Colbert has his first debate tonight. So that's at 11:30, so hopefully we can make it on. So I want to welcome everyone again to our September meeting. We just have a few announcements. A lot of them are transportation related and a few sort of administrative items. I'll start with, I guess, the transportation items first. Many of you have come to our meetings in the past and been very involved in our city bike work. I want to thank the members of the board and also the community who came out to examine and look at those sites as they were identified. Pleased to say they've been rolled out. I think many of you have seen them on the Upper West Side in recent days. Many of them are already out. I think almost all of them are there or almost there. So please feel free to consult our website at Community Board 7 to actually see where the locations are docked. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to call the board office. I also wanted to reference some information. There's been a lot of talk in the press about a resolution we passed in July related to the Amsterdam Avenue sort of improvements that Community Board 7 has been fighting for a long time. Those improvements included a safety plan, a very comprehensive safety plan that we urged the board to act on, as well as a protected bike lane. There's been a lot of news in the press. I wanted to see if our committee chairs might want to offer, I know there's, again, some of that information has been truthful, some of it has not been represented accurately, and I don't know if our chairs would like to make a brief comment about some of those remarks.
Well, that was emphatic, wasn't it? I think that the thing that was controversial was something that appeared in the Post, which was kind of a surprise. And it happened that it happened actually, it's the first time I've spoken to a reporter in 25 years on the board. So it happened to surprise me in a number I was off on vacation that I only used for outgoing calls. So I was kind of surprised and got on there. And called and was querying about, mentioning about the fact that Holly Trottenberg had made some mention of an Amsterdam bike lane on the Brian Lair show. And I had heard about it earlier in the day and actually had listened to the Brian Lair show to hear what she said. And then when the reporter came in, and then when the reporter came on that, the reporter was asking me, Well, actually, first I started off by saying, as far as anything that has to do with an official position of CB7, I really can only offer you no comment. And then subsequent to that, she kind of said, well, how do you feel about the fact that the DOT is proposing to do this land? Are you surprised about this? And I said, well, actually, no, I'm not surprised. That's what we, the board, actually asked for. I said that we asked for them to look into proposing a lane on Amsterdam Avenue. I said that we recognize that they may have some difficulties because it's got very heavy truck traffic, that it doesn't have lanes that can be narrowed the way Columbus did, and that there may be some problems in doing that. So actually, it's not the only thing we asked for. We said that in addition, if they find out that they have a difficulty in being able to propose a bike lane for Amsterdam Avenue, we asked two things. One is we've asked that they do some things to make Amsterdam safer without a bike lane. And then number two, that we asked DOT to please propose a different northbound route, protected route for bike lanes. It was surprising to me that the only thing that got written out of that whole commentary, I kind of printed it out, the only part of that they got out of there was, there's very heavy traffic on Amsterdam Avenue and it's a truck route. We don't know if Amsterdam Avenue can accommodate a bike lane. That's all they got out of that.
The moral of the story, I guess, the moral of the story is that reporters don't always, I guess, they certainly didn't reflect, the reporter did not reflect what the vision of the board and what the board voted on. So we wanted to make sure that was corrected for all of you in the community tonight to know that our community board voted overwhelmingly in support of these improvements on Amsterdam, and you can check our website for all of the information and the specifics of that resolution. So we just wanted to clarify that. Thanks, Dan, for clarifying that as well. And just for the record, that article also stated, Commissioner Trottenberg had mentioned that that information potentially would come up for a community board discussion sometime as early as September. That is actually not the case. It will come up sometime this fall. We believe the earliest it could come through Community Board 7 is October. So please stay tuned to our website and we can provide you with the most up-to-date information on when exactly that Amsterdam plan will come before Community Board 7 and before the community. So just moving along, and again, thank you on that. This month, I was welcomed by our former chair, Mr. Fine, that September is Emergency Preparedness Month, and is a head and one of the heads and the leaders of the Upper West Side CERT, as well as Dan, who is a member. Wanted to turn the floor over to Shelley for just about 2 minutes to discuss some of those developments and what's going on with the CERT team this month.
Thank you. So this month is National Emergency Preparedness Month across the whole country. And what we're going to be doing is providing information for the mailing and the website on CB7, so you can access that information rather than trying to explain things in a couple of minutes here. Our local team recently won the 2015 Deployment and Emergency Activity for the whole city. So we have some expertise. And in that light, we would like to provide the opportunity for community groups, whether it be block associations, tenants groups, organizations of any type, for presentations on things like GOLAGs, responding to emergencies in your building, the emergency evacuation plans, anything and anything that might interest you or your group that you may belong to. So we can be contacted at simply SFINE, okay, at Upper West Side, UWS, CERT, C-E-R-T, Community Emergency Response Team.org. But that's going to be on the information that goes out. Thank you for a couple of minutes, and be prepared.
Few other quick announcements. The BCI committee has been working very hard on their October business-to-business networking session. I don't know if George, Michelle, if you have something you'd like to add about details for that. It's coming up at the end of October.
Yeah, so we're having our 7th, B2B, on Thursday, October 22nd, at the, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the New York Historical Society. We hope to have a speaker from the Borough President's Office on the report, Small Business Big Impact, as well as having a few of the health insurance plans to be there as exhibitors, given that November 1st is the start of open enrollment for health insurance starting in January. We invite, it's an open event. We're attempting to engage all the community boards in Manhattan to come to the event and have a representative on the planning committee in order to have them see how we put together our business-to-business events. So just keep that in mind. It's open to the public, October 22nd, 6 to 8 p.m. The information will be on the board's website where you can register.
And it's great service for the borough. Even if you're not from the neighborhood, please come out for it. It's going to be a great, great opportunity to do that.
I'm sorry, if anybody knows a member of any other community board, you know, like your friends or acquaintances, can you help us out? Because we want one member from each community board to be part of this.
And you should come to the borough board in September too and make an announcement about it, or we can make sure that that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Great. On the lineup of announcements coming up on the calendar, September 24th is going to be a meeting that Community Board 7 has been working really hard on related to West End Avenue. I don't know, Ethel, if you'd like to say a word or two about the meeting, but a survey, many of you completed it and filled out information about safety and other issues related to West End Avenue. Was completed, it was looked at, it was analyzed. There's going to be an open discussion about that survey taking place on the 24th at our board office. So Ethel, if you want to say a word.
Yes, as Elizabeth said, the survey was conducted several months after the new traffic changes and design changes in West End Avenue were implemented, and Community Board 7 initiated a Survey Monkey survey with the pro bono help of a national transportation firm, Nelson Nygaard, and we sent out about 6 or 7 questions with quantitative responses as to people's reactions and concerns and recommendations on the changes. And in addition, there was provision for a lot of comments. Being Upper West Siders, there were a lot of individual comments that took a while for us to review. In any case, as Elizabeth said, an hour before the Transportation Committee meets, I guess at about 6 o'clock, everyone of the board and members of the community are very welcome for an hour to review some of the findings, or many of the findings, and to discuss some of the implications. Last point, the Department of DOT does do its own official evaluation of the changes that it implemented. It usually does that approximately 16 or 18 months after the changes have been implemented. So we're going to check with them about when they are doing their official evaluation, and we are giving them the results of individual responses of about 600 responses that came through the Survey Monkey. So that's what we hope to do on September 24th.
Great, thanks Ethel, and thanks for your work on that. At the bottom of point, the Transportation Committee has moved dates. Please check our website. September, we want to wish everyone, I know there are holidays, we want to wish everyone who is observing happy Rosh Hashanah a little bit earlier, the New Year. As a result of a lot of the holidays occurring in September, we have alternate meeting dates for a number of our committees. Too many almost to go through today, so please check the website for that. Transportation will be held on the evening of the 24th of September this month, so it will not be the second Tuesday of the month. Just like to make that announcement. Just a couple of final things. Our colleague Vicki Fiegel from the Health and Human Services Committee mentioned spraying for West Nile virus. which I was not aware of until she brought it to my attention today, and it does occur in our zip code throughout the Upper West Side, taking place throughout the days Wednesday, I guess, throughout Wednesday and Thursday in the evening and in the early morning. I think you can go to the mental health, the mental health and mental hygiene website to get the full locations, I think, of where they're spraying, but did wanted to bring it to the community's attention because it is occurring in our neighborhood. Dan, do you want to?
It's 8 p.m. until 6 a.m.
Okay, so like overnight hours.
It's going to be Wednesday night, Thursday
Okay.
morning. You don't know when in that period they're coming.
Okay.
1, 2, 4, 5.
So for those of you who have dogs and are walking them, be warned. They're not flyers, but there's a website, and if you go to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene website, you can get the details for it. So just a couple of quick administrative announcements about some of our wonderful elected officials, staffers who are here tonight. I want to welcome Cherika Dubois, if you could stand up for just a brief moment. She is our new staffer to Councilmember Corey Johnson, who's here tonight for the first time. I want to welcome you. And sadly, we have a departure to report. Jackie Blank, who has worked for Congressman Nadler for a long time, is going to deliver her final report. So thank you very much, Jackie, for your service, and good luck with your next endeavors. We're looking forward to hearing all about that. So along those lines, one final announcement, schedule-wise, and then we'll move on. Many people have asked about what's going on with the city planning and zoning issues for affordable and quality zoning that is taking place, we believe, at the end of September. It will come through the land use committee at some point this fall. It's a really important sort of initiative and work that's being done by the city. It's going to affect our entire neighborhood. We're very appreciative to the land use committee for their efforts and their leadership as this goes into the fall, but it's going to be a really big piece of work that our board is all involved in, not just land use members, but all of us, and just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. So that concludes my chair's report. I'd now like to turn over the meeting to Howard Garris, who is our chair again this year of the elections committee, who's going to walk board members through the elections process. Thank you very much, Howard.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay. Great. Elizabeth has constituted an elections committee consisting of 4 people, myself, Blanche, Andrew, and Benjamin. And the process is we're going to take nominations at this meeting for election at our October meeting. So basically, we're taking nominations for the office of chair, 2 vice chairs, and 2 secretaries. The process is that someone should nominate the person, and then someone else should second the person. And as I said, the election will be at the next meeting. Any questions? If not, then I'll open the floor for nominations for the office of chair.
I nominate Elizabeth Caputo.
Thank you. Any seconds? Great. Okay. Any further nominations for the office of chair? If not, nominations for chair are closed. Next are nominations for the vice chair.
I nominate Audrey Isaacs.
Second. Okay. So we have Audrey. Any further nominations for chair? Again, there are two for co-chair or vice chair. Sorry, and there are 2 vice chairs. Any further nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Matt Holtzman.
Matt. Okay. Any second? A second? Great. So far we have Audrey and Matt. Is there a third nomination? Yep. Nora? Okay. And you second? Okay. So any further nominations for vice chair? So we have 3 nominations. 3 it is. Secretary. Nominations for secretary. Christopher. Second. Great. And the second nomination for? Yes.
Second on.
But now we've already had the second. Now we're looking for a second nomination. It's supposed to be second to the first nomination. Okay.
Second.
That's 2 for the secretary position. Is there a third nomination for secretary?
I'm retiring.
Well, maybe one day you'll come out of it. Yeah. Any further nominations for the secretary position? Not, the nominations are closed. We're going to put together ballots and we'll have the election at the October meeting. And there's a procedure for each of the nominated candidates to write a position paper. It's all spelled out in the bylaws. It's 250 words, and they have to have it in within a certain amount of time. Depending, we'll circulate it to everyone on the board, and we'll communicate the details of that by email. Any questions on the process? Okay, thanks.
Okay, moving along, we're going to move into our community session in just a moment. However, our esteemed council member Rosenthal is here, and she has to take off. So I'm going to give her the floor to say a few words.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Congratulations to all the nominees, I guess. I hope you run. I hope you have a good, vigorous election. And I have to say congratulations to Elizabeth for a third year, for your future third year. That's very good. I wanted to bring you up to date on a few things. I hope everyone had a good summer. But most importantly, I have a new constituent liaison, Sean Patrick. If everyone could be nice to him, it's his first day. Give him a warm welcome. So Sean gets a warm welcome from me for two reasons. One, he's from Michigan, so you gotta love him. And secondly, he's from my alma mater, Michigan State, so go Spartan. I just learned how to say that, because usually I say go, but I'm glad you're here. You're glad to be here. So usually Sean will be giving the report, he'll be showing up at meetings, and if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to him. Do you have an email address?
Not yet.
Oh, no. He will have an email address. It'll be sfitzpatrick@council.nyc.gov. Thank you. And I also have a new scheduler, Emily Cahill, who's not here tonight, but has been working already for a month and is extraordinary and actually gets me to places on time, which I find very impressive. I want to talk about a couple of things. One, my newsletter with updates about what's going on is in the back of the room if you didn't get it by email. And I did send out an email today actually about the West Nile spray. One thing that people should know, because we got a flood of concerns to our office about this, it's not like this is going to be a helicopter dump of pesticide. It's a van that goes around and it's actually escorted by police cars, and they, spray low. I agree, if you're out with your dog, except just so you know, they do not spray if people are around, and they make a point of circling back if enough people are around. I wanted to let you know that my housing clinics will start up again in October. We have the schedule now, which you can find in the back of the room. They've been very well attended, so that's exciting. And I really want to spend a minute. Is Eric here? I didn't see him. Oh, he's not. But Blanche is here, right? Blanche is always here. I just wanted to let you know, so school's starting tomorrow, and the city really screwed up the whole PS 191, PS 199, the wait list situation. Again, I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but I'm always surprised and very, very disappointed. We're anxious for the new school to open at Riverside Center. But they screwed up for a number of reasons. One, they screwed up the wait list, and there's a large, parents are still on the wait list from PS 199, which is outrageous. And although the state designated PS 191 as a persistently dangerous school, this information came out to the Department of Education in March. And the Department of Education chose not to appeal that decision right away, which was just outrageous, because when you look at the reasons they were given that designation, they're all a result of inaccurate reporting and inaccurate classification of events. For example, somebody throwing a pencil in the room was documented as, what was it marked, like a...
Sexual assault.
No. Throwing a pencil was like a weapon, right? Assault with a weapon. So it's an inaccurate designation. It's going to screw up this school's enrollment again this year. But now everyone is, Department of Education is, although they've now said, they've actually rolled it back. So they've now said they're not going to appeal at all, which is very disappointing. I've written a letter, and you'll find it in my handout, to the Department of Education expressing my frustration about this. The parent body is very frustrated, but we're doing a lot for that school to support it, and we hope they get off to a really good, I think they'll have a good and a successful year. They have a terrific principal. I also wanted to let you know about legislation that I introduced last week for people with disabilities to increase their accessibility and participation in civic life. There are 3 different bills. I wrote an op-ed about it that appeared in this week's West Side Spirit, so you can read about it. We brought copies back there. But I'm excited about them because what I've come to learn over the last 6 months here in particular is people with disabilities are so disgusted with public forums not being accessible to them that they've really given up on government. And they've given up on the possibility that government would be a place where they could participate in a community meeting such as this one, for example. Although I guess this is wheelchair accessible. But there's no notification for people with disabilities about whether or not a meeting is accessible for somebody who's in a wheelchair, or is accessible for someone who has a hearing aid and really needs to be in a room with a hearing loop. And this is just the type of information that this legislation would require. Any city event that is for a meaningful number of people would have to have that information right on the publicity for that event. And time would have to be given for reasonable accommodations. So I'm really excited about that legislation. I'm excited for the notion that more of the city agencies would be required to have an ADA coordinator. Right now, the Department of Transportation actually is the shining example of one where the ADA coordinator goes to meetings with Polly Trottenberg, every meeting with Polly. So when she's thinking about safe streets throughout the city, the ADA coordinator is in those meetings and thinking about people with disabilities on the spot. We need to be making sure that we're doing that at HRA, at public libraries, at the Parks Department, and a host of other agencies. So we'll be having a hearing about these bills. There are 3 bills actually in November. If people want to come, let me know, but stay tuned to the legislative hearing schedule about that. A lot of people, I think, are concerned about Intro 775, which is Greenfield and Coos bill on LPC. I'm firmly opposed to that bill. If people want to come to the hearing tomorrow, that would be great. I actually, as Jay knows, I have a bill that Jay helped to write that's somewhat the opposite, which would allow for more input by community boards on LPC issues. And, we need to sort of get rid of this bill first before we can go take our bill in the other direction. But I don't think there are the votes for this bill. But they are having a hearing about it tomorrow. It's really important that people come out or send in their comments. And lastly, I know you're going to be talking tonight about 70 West 93rd, and I actually just wanted to thank the committee for having a very thorough, robust discussion the other night. I get the sense you guys covered every single point, and I'm sure you'll come out with a resolution that covers that, so thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Andrew? Or, sorry, Elizabeth.
On the issue of the West Nile spraying that you spoke about earlier, do you know if that's bird and pet safe when they spray the greenery?
Yes, it is. It's required to be. And yes, it is, and it's required to be. The other thing I just wanted to mention about it is it's very likely that the spraying will not start at 8:30. It's more likely to start around 10, but they don't know their exact schedule, so.
Thanks.
That's what I get out. Michelle.
On the issue of training delivery people who work at restaurants that don't come before our community because either they don't need a full liquor license or a cafe, we are looking forward to helping you anyway.
Great. Thank you for letting us know that. Sean is taking down that note as we speak, and we'll reach out to you to make sure you guys are fully integrated in the forum.
We'd be glad to help anyway.
Great, great. We, for the few times when our office went out and stood in the bike lane and gave out information, it's remarkable how little the bike delivery guys know about what the rules are. So it's another stab at it. DOT will be there giving the information and giving out free vests and bells and whistles and whatever people need. Anything else?
Thanks, Helen.
All right.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Mark.
Participatory budgeting is coming in with neighborhood assemblies
Yes.
in October, and your website will have the dates, I hope.
Why, thank you for that gentle reminder. Participatory budgeting is coming. We've already started planning for the neighborhood assemblies. Mark has once again joined our district committee, which is great. Sean from our office is going to be leading that effort. What I mean to say is supporting the effort that is led by Mark and the other district committee members. And we hope everyone will come out to neighborhood assemblies. We had 4 great projects that won last year. I added one as well. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys very much.
Great. We're going to move into the community session. I know we have a couple of elected officials here. I'm not sure if they're ready and they want to come up. We'll have them come up now. I don't know, Senator Hoyleman, if you'd like to come up. And I know you've been out of session this summer, but I'm sure there's some stuff you want to talk about for a couple of minutes. So definitely, if you're ready, Brad, please, or somebody remember what it was called? Okay, we'll move into the community session if people, okay, great. Thank you, Senator. Great.
Thanks so much. Welcome back, I guess. I hope everyone had a happy Labor Day and a good summer. I am happy to report on a couple of items. I'll be brief. One is that I unveiled legislation today. I feel like I should turn this way too. Unveiled legislation today with Assemblymember Deborah Glick and a number of advocates that would require any company wishing to do business with the state of New York to disclose its pay gender gap. In the state of New York and across the nation, women are chronically paid less than their male counterparts. And nationwide, it's something like 75 cents to the dollar. A woman is underpaid. In New York, is slightly better. It's 86 cents to the dollar. But we really need to take steps to remedy that situation. And Assemblywoman Glick and I have drafted a bill that would require public disclosure of the gender gap, wage gap for any company that wants to enter an agreement with the state of New York. We can leverage New York's billions and billions of dollars of contracting power to pursue social good. So I'm hopeful that we can get support from our colleagues as we move this bill forward. So that's the first thing. Secondly is I wanted to thank Council Member Rosenthal for her efforts on supporting PS 191. I joined my colleagues, including Assemblymember Rosenthal, in sending a letter to the State Education Department and DOE, basically setting forth our concern that parents were notified so late in the process before the start of the school year, and there didn't seem to be a procedure in place for parents or teachers or anyone in the community to understand exactly why the school and how the school was designated a persistently dangerous one. You know, my daughter, in aside, is starting kindergarten tomorrow, so I'll be joining the ranks of public school parents. So I can understand the unease as you approach the beginning of the school year, because I'm feeling it just about now. And to get a letter like that from DOE without having any advance notice, in particular since the school has undertaken such strides to turn itself around under the new principal and leadership in the community, is really disheartening. So we really need to press the State Department of Education and DOE to do a better job in that regard. And then finally, I wanted to just take a moment to plug a few local events that are occurring with the help of my terrific colleague, Tara Klein, whom I think most of you know. I'm the ranking member of this Senate Environmental Conservation Committee, and we're having kind of a discussion on the fact that monarch butterflies have been disappearing in the billions in the last decade. The link seems to be connected to the pesticide glyphosate, and there's also concern that it's related to bee colony collapse as well. So I've introduced legislation to put a moratorium on glyphosate. It's a common pesticide that a lot of homeowners use on their lawns in a product called Roundup. But we are having a discussion on Wednesday, September 30th at NYU Law School down in the Village from 6:30 to 8 p.m. There's information about this. I know, and I wanted to thank you for that. And so I hope some of you can make it down there. We're going to be joined by a woman named Margaret Say. She's a litigation specialist with the Natural Resources Defense Council to discuss what we can do as a state to push back on the pesticide glyphosate and Roundup. Some free flu shot opportunities coming from my office. Mount Sinai Beth Israel is going to be giving those this year. I do this every year on Friday, October 9th from 3 to 6 p.m. At my Chelsea office. Space is limited, but I urge you to call in advance to reserve your spot. And then finally, we're going to have a mammogram van as well out in front of
Lincoln Towers, I think.
Lincoln Towers, yes, on Thursday, September 24th. So hope you can take advantage of that. Welcome any comments or questions now, or feel free to call me anytime. We're gearing up with legislative ideas as we kind of head toward the beginning of the session in January. So we have some time to get some good bills drafted. I also wanted to say that I want to commend the city for its efforts in getting speed cameras up and running before the start of school. They've launched, I think, 140 of them across the city near schools. I was at a press conference today with the DOT Commissioner Polly Trottenberg, so I wanted to commend the city for that, and all the advocates on the Upper West Side who've been pushing for that, particularly Families for Safe Streets.
And Transportation Committee worked very hard on that as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Transportation Alternatives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Senator. And on the 191 issue, our October YEL meeting, Youth Education and Libraries Committee, is going to sort of focus on that and hopefully do something where we have, actually maybe even doing it at the school if we are successful in that. So it's a priority for us too. So thank you for mentioning it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Senator.
Oh.
When is the environmental discussion about, again, that's Wednesday night at 9?
Wednesday, September 30th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. NYU Law School.
Thank you.
Vanderbilt Hall, room 220.
Okay, I'm reading.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks very much.
Assemblymember Rosenthal.
Hi, everyone. Summer's not over. It's like 95 degrees out, so we don't have to get into that mindset yet. But it's wonderful to see you again. There are a lot of issues to discuss. Illegal hotels. You know, that's when people rent out apartments, like Airbnb, when they're not supposed to. And people regularly call my office and tell us. So we work with the City Office of Special Enforcement. So I think we've shut down, just in the past month or two, 5 or 6 of them. This is housing that's meant for working New Yorkers, not for tourists who are here for a day or two. And so we continue to get complaints and to work closely to see that they are shut down. It's just not fair, and I've done a lot on Airbnb, and I'm doing some more aside from my staying, but it's an issue that's of a lot of concern for me. And if any of you have information about apartments that are illegally being rented out, let me know, because those should be restored back to our housing stock. The city did a study, or Department of Finance did a study, saying that the Upper West Side was one of the most under-enrolled neighborhoods in Scree and Dree. And so I passed a bill that hopefully the governor will sign. He hasn't called up any of my 10 or 11 bills yet, so that'll happen this fall, I suppose. But landlords will have to tell rent-regulated tenants at least once a year that the program Scree and Dree exists. And for those who don't know, it freezes rents of seniors or people with disabilities if the rent they pay is more than 1/3 of their income. We raised the cap to $50,000, so that has had the effect of having more people eligible, and it keeps them in their homes. So hopefully, I think he will sign that. PS 199 and 191 is a very fraught issue. One of the bottom lines is that the city and the DOE has never adequately planned for the number of students that will need to go to school here. Now, a lot of people pay a lot of rent here on the Upper West Side so they can send their kid to the zone school. That's why they move here. That's why they moved here before they got married or had kids. And it's the Department of Education's responsibility to make sure that those kids have a seat. In this case, the same as in last year, there was almost a 100-person wait list for 199. They knew that would happen again, did nothing. So of course there's another wait list of a similar length. 191, in the meantime, found itself on the persistently dangerous list. 27 schools in this city and 32 around the state were put on that list, and 191 is one of them. Now, I and a lot of others who work at 191 and are involved don't think it really merits being on that list. A lot of people are enthusiastic about that school, and they don't view it as dangerous and menacing. DOE knew, because the state ed department has to, under No Child Left Behind, let the municipality responsible for education know that they might be on such a list, and they should take some action to make sure it doesn't land there. Nothing, did nothing. So as 191 came the overflow school for 199, and the scores are quite different. Everyone knows 199 is among the best. 191 has lagged along for years, and the past year they have a new principal who's really making great strides at picking everything up. So this is a blow to them, but the whole situation did not have to get this far, and I've written multiple letters, 7 or 8, to all sorts of authorities that they have to address this issue. It's just untenable for 191 not to get the resources it needs, and it needs a lot. it's also untenable for 199 to continue to have such a wait list because people expect to send their kids there when they live in that zone. So it's something I'm working on with state ed, as well as DOE and the local schools. Everyone should be able to have good public schools where they get a sound education. We gave a lot more money in the state budget to public schools this year, and the money has to go where it's needed. It's needed at 191, it's needed in other schools, but I'm dedicated to making sure that all of that happens. I will be having a dental van at 191 in November, which is something that the kids maybe hate, but their parents love, fill those cavities. I'm also having a bike forum at JASA at the end of October. I had one last year where people came and we have different city agencies and other people speak about it, so I'm going to be having another one of those. I've done a mammogram van since I started, which is 9 years ago, so I will be having one shortly. And I'm also having a scree-dree clinic in my office on September 24th from 11 to 2 with people from the Department of Finance who will help people fill out their forms. One last thing, a lot of the buildings that I've been working in this past summer, it's a new trick by landlords, no gas. And it's horrific. I have one building where it's almost 3 years without gas, another where it's like 4 months without gas. Sometimes they give them a hot plate, sometimes they don't. So people have great expenses to go out to dinner, whatever. And it's a whole trickery, but it's very unfair, and it's something that I'm also working on with the Tenant Protection Unit and HCR and the city. So it's good to see all of you, and give me a call if you want to chat, or if you have any issues that you want me to focus on leading up to all of you. Thank you.
Linda?
Yes.
I just want to add, and this is something you may bring up in the discussion of 199 and 191. In the late 80s, 199, virtually no local students went there. We had to ship them in from Washington Heights, from out of district.
Yes.
But the resources were put in, and the programs were put in, the support was given, and it became the premier school. So doing the right thing by a school and supporting it in all those ways can make a difference.
I agree, and I think 191 will certainly get there, and with the resources, they will. So, oh, yes.
When is the bike forum in JASA?
It's tentatively for the 29th of October. We're just nailing down that date. Yes.
Oh, do you have another shredding event?
Oh, I know, that was great, right? Yes.
Well, I missed it.
Oh,
Somebody else
sorry.
was asking me about it.
Okay, I had this great shred event where, working with AARP, they brought this giant shredder, and people schlepped like tax returns from 30 years ago and watched it get dumped into the shredder. I got many requests to schedule it again, so I'm working with them to try to see when we could have another one. Actually inspired me to go home and look for my tax returns, which I didn't bring to Shred Day, unfortunately. Okay, who else had a question? That's it.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So we're going to move along now to the community session. I'm going to call out, we have 3 public speakers tonight. I'd also like to ask and prepare the elected official staffers if they could be ready to come to the microphone for their 1 minute. I'm going to call on you, but hopefully you can come quickly because we've got a really busy agenda tonight. So starting through with Libby Evans first, followed by Peter Arnson, and then Richard Farr.
I'm sorry, I forgot the most important part of my speech. I have a new staffer. I thought you were going to introduce him. His name is Gus Ibsen. He is the tallest man in the room. And he's my new community and constituent liaison. Cover your ears, he's awesome. And he's very patient and he's really good. And so he will be here at future meetings and you will always be able to find him. Thank you.
I'm going to try to get together all the new staffers at some point in October to welcome them formally. So thanks. So I guess we'll start out with Libby.
Yes, thank you. I'm a resident of West 78th Street, and I understood that there would be discussion about an extraordinarily long bike rack that was proposed. It seems to have dropped off the agenda. Do we know why?
Yes, I think Penny can respond to that, but I do know that it's been taken off the list.
Well, it's not on, it was supposed to be on for tonight.
Yeah. I don't believe it was actually on the discussion. It's not on the agenda for tonight. And our understanding from DOT is that it has been struck correctly. It's not necessarily going to be, it's on hold.
It's on hold.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for coming tonight. Sorry to keep you here for an hour. Always feel free to talk to Penny Ryan, who's our district manager in the back. She can wave her hand. And if you have a question about whether an item is going to be on the agenda, she can make sure to direct you. Thank you for coming tonight, though. Peter Arnson, next.
Good evening. What a great place to be in tonight. I wanted to let you know we have our September events calendars on the back table, and a couple of the things that are, a number of the things that are on there are our family days on Sunday the 20th and Sunday the 27th. We close down Amsterdam Avenue. There will be bike lessons. There will be a fire truck to climb on for kids. Lots of different things, vocal music. We'll also on the 27th have e-waste collection, and that'll be from 10 to 4. And on the 27th, we'll have Flavors of the World, a taste of the Bloomingdale neighborhood from 1 to 3. So come on out for that. We have on the night of the Transportation Committee meeting, a history talk by Kate Wood on landmarks and their status in the upper part of the Upper West Side. So that will be happening at the landmark Hostelling International building at 6:30. We also have a talk as part of the Bloomingdale Neighborhood History Group series on medical institutions. We'll have a talk on October 5th, which is right after your meeting, before your meeting for October, so that's the reason I'm bringing it up here. And lastly, we have walks in our neighborhood on both the 23rd and on the 7th. So, thank you.
Richard Barr? Richard here, okay.
So I imagine this has been discussed here before, but I wanted to point out that because the 86th Street Crosstown bus no longer has its layover on the eastbound side of 86th between Broadway and West End behind the first stop as it heads east, there's two problems. One is that the layover is now on the west side, the north side of Broadway, of 86 rather, between Broadway and Amsterdam. And when there's a third bus in line, it blocks an active driveway at the Belmore where I happen to live. And so that's problem number one. But problem number two, I think, is that because that's now the layover, the last stop has been eliminated, which was 87th and West End. And I imagine for people with disabilities who wanted those extra 2 blocks, that's a problem. So I just started, please, I don't need your stop sign. And I'm almost finished. Now, the ostensible reason is because of the construction on 86th. And I just want to say that because that's all going, the facade of those buildings on the south side is being maintained, all the construction is behind it, I think they can easily contain their work area on the curb and they don't have to extend out. And the bus really could line up, in the layover area that it used to have. And I urge you to try to do something with the MTA about changing that.
We had meetings with the construction team and Penny and bus folks and everything, and apparently they need to stage building materials and construction trucks in the layover that used to be. So that's one of the reasons that the layover is now at the Belmore. As to blocking the driveway at Belmont, we can certainly do something about that. As to not being able to ride to 87th and West End, you can still ride there, you just will have to wait, unfortunately, for the layover to be over and the bus to resume its eastbound journey, which will begin by going west to 87th and coming around the normal way. The reason the stop has been located at the Bell Nord is that it is within sight of the eastbound stop at Broadway, so they can see when they need a bus to go and leave from in front of the Bell Nord. But as far as riding through, you can. They didn't want to have it where it used to be, then the construction would start, they would move the bus, and people would get confused, and then they would have to move it back again. So they're waiting for the construction to be over before they.
And is there an estimate as to when that'll be?
I don't have that, Richard, but I'll find out.
Thanks. Thank you to both. Okay, I think Diana Howard is here from the Borough President's Office to deliver her report, and then I'm gonna just rattle down the names of the staffers who are here. If you could just get in line to get ready. Jackie Blank, Laura Atlas, Dan Campanelli, George Demalis, Bryce Kerr, Liz Nell, and David Moss.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Happy summer. 3 really quick things from our office. I know we're pressed for time. Crossing guards. So the start of school is this week. Earlier this year, the city allocated $1.4 million in additional funds to hire 80 new crossing guards, and there are 41 vacancies in Manhattan. If you go to the back table, there's our newsletter, and I have a list of vacancies by the police precinct. So you can pick that up. You can apply yourself, or you can pass on the information to someone else that you may know. Our community award grants the applications are due September 10th. So if you haven't already done so, you should probably get on that. And these are small grants between $3,500 and $5,000 that are allocated to nonprofits for programmatic and operating expenses, and they're contracted through 5 city agencies. Lastly, I'll say that we are holding a public hearing on traffic congestion. This is going to be September 17th at 10 a.m. at VMCC, which is 199 Chamber Street. And then you can pick up the report for more information. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I hope everyone had a great summer. So I'm going to speak really briefly about the biggest topic going on in our office, which is the Iran deal. So as you may have seen, Congressman Nadler recently announced his support for the Iran nuclear deal. Thank you. After carefully studying the agreement and the arguments and analyses from all sides, including extensive conversations with experts from around the globe, advocates and constituents, the Congressman concluded that approval of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action gives us the best chance of stopping Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. As the Congressman articulated in a comprehensive statement, copies of which are in the back, or they can be found on our website, a nuclear-armed Iran would be more dangerous, more destructive, and more destabilizing for the US, Israel, the region, and the world, which is why our overriding objective must be to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear bomb. The Congressman believes the agreement, properly monitored and enforced, does a very good job of prohibiting the Iranians from ever developing or attempting to develop a nuclear bomb, despite some clear weaknesses in the deal. The JCPOA shuts off both the plutonium and uranium pathways to a nuclear bomb. Sorry, I'm going to keep going a little bit. And includes robust inspection and verification provisions, which are not based on trusting Iranian compliance, but instead place all of Iran's nuclear pathways under 24/7 surveillance for 25 years. This will give the US and our partners more intelligence, more time, and more options to respond appropriately should there be any suspicion that Iran is violating the agreement. Without the agreement, Iran is mere 2 to 3 months away from developing a nuclear weapon, which we obviously cannot allow to happen. While the Congressman is supporting the JCPOA as better than any available alternative, he also believes strongly that it's vital that we pursue ways to further guarantee the security of the United States, of Israel, and our other allies, given the remorseless conduct of Iran in the region. The Congressman sought and received explicit assurances in a letter from the President on a number of his concerns in this area and will continue to work to that end. The Congressman has also strongly condemned the often hateful rhetoric that has emerged around this public debate on both sides. I urge everyone to read the full statement. I also do want to thank Elizabeth for announcing this is my last week in the Congressman's office. I'll be relocating to DC, but it's really been a true pleasure to work in this community, so I thank everyone for the help that they've given. Thank you.
Laura Alice from Public Advocate Tisha James' office.
Good evening, Community Board 7. I hope you had a good summer. I hope that during your summer you did a little reading with the New York Times. You saw there was an article about the Public Advocate. It talked about how she's used the office as kind of a broad legal tool for all New Yorkers, described how she has
filed more lawsuits than her 3 previous predecessors. This is in half a term, and we're talking versus 20 years. So we know we have a reputation now we have to live up to. So we filed 2 lawsuits recently. One for ACS. We did a pretty broad study of people who had dealt with ACS through the years and saw the trouble that they had been through, saw the mistreatment, and so we are working to try to resolve some of that legally. And also, we were alerted last September about a child who's in District 75, which for those of you who don't know,
ECS?
Adult Child Services. So for those of you who don't know, District 75 is for children with learning disabilities. We're suing DOE to make sure that they are all on air-conditioned buses, is what I'm gonna say.
Thank you. Dan Campanelli from Controllers.
Good evening, everybody. Dan Campanelli from Controller Scott Stringer's office. Likewise, hope you had a great summer. Very happy to be here. A few quick things. We do have the report on the back table. Please, everybody, grab a copy. It's got information on our latest audit of the New York City Housing Authority. It's our 6th audit report in the last 20 months. I think the previous controllers did 8 over the course of 10 years. So take a look at that. It's on repairs. There's some significant findings in there, as well as a 4-point reform plan for reform that the controller issued. Also, folks are familiar with our claim stat initiative. That's the initiative that the controller came up with to drive down claim costs across the city using data. The latest one that we did was on potholes. We found some significant things. I think it was $138 million in settlements for pothole-related claims over 6 years. Take a look at that. It's broken down borough by borough. It's on the website as well. Finally, we have our Hispanic Heritage Celebration, September 30th at Surrogates Courthouse. Hope you can make it. Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Dan. George Demales from Senator Serrano's office. George, are you here? Not here? George? Hi. Is Senator Serrano's office here? Okay, great. Reese Pear from Assemblymember Gottfried's office.
Yes, thank you. If during the dog days of August you had been deriving all your information about New York City only from the Daily News and the New York Post, you would probably think that the Mad Elmos and Desnudas were the biggest issue in New York City. They're not, of course, but they are affecting areas like Times Square, and now we're seeing spillover in areas like Columbus Circle and Battery Park City. Assemblymember Gottfried was named to the task force that's been formed by the mayor to examine conditions at Times Square. All I can say briefly, the task force has not met yet, but he is firmly opposed to the closing of any pedestrian areas in Times Square or elsewhere. In addition, I'll just be very brief, but we did receive word today that Animal Care and Centers of New York City is hosting a free adoption event through its mobile adoption center. You can adopt a cat or a dog with no other pets. These 2 events are both taking place at the Petco at Union Square, Saturday, September 19th from noon to 4, and Sunday, September 20th from noon to 5. Everything else is in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisnell Eber Ventura, greetings. I think is this your first meeting? Welcome. You were shy earlier. Welcome to Community Board 7. You are representing Assemblymember O'Donnell's office. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, again, my name is Lisnell Ibar Ventura, and I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Assemblymember O'Donnell's new community liaison, as well as his communications assistant. So very quickly, I just wanted to say his monthly update is in the back. And to highlight some points, we discussed his annual Community Health Service Day, which took place in August. As the chair of the Corrections Committee at the New York State Assembly, Danny's been traveling to different prisons throughout the state in an effort to see what's going on and to reform prisons. Some events I wanted to highlight is his free legal clinic on Thursday, September 24th, as well as, his no-cost mammogram screening on Saturday, October 3rd. And lastly, that our office is looking for a fall intern and a fall fellowship. More information is in the monthly update in the back.
And interns are high school or college or?
College preferably, but high school students are welcome as well.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we have David Moss, our final council member who's here tonight. David Moss and Cherika Dubois represent. Cherika, you're first. Welcome, and Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you for that introduction earlier, Liz. My name is Cherika Dubois. I'm representing Councilmember Corey Johnson's office. I'll be taking the torch from David, who wasn't able to stay for the whole meeting. I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to our participatory budgeting kickoff that's happening on September 28th at the High Line. We were able to fund 7 projects last year, including one composting center that's in the works. Actually, a number of composting centers, but the one I guess that's relatively close to here is in Hell's Kitchen. But the exact location and when that's all happening is sort of still being worked out. Also wanted to bring to attention there's a pop-up for IDNYC. If anyone's been interested in signing up and getting an IDNYC card and hasn't been able to at our local libraries, we're having a pop-up at GMHC on West 33rd Street between 9th and 10th, and this is going on from September 1st to September 18th. And lastly, the council member last month was able to get the mayor to sign on to his bill requiring fire sprinklers at facilities that house animals. This bill essentially required pet stores and other facilities that house animals to install fire sprinkler systems, affording them the same safety that their human counterparts have. And thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I think that concludes our reports from elected officials and staffs, unless I'm missing anyone. That in mind, we're going to move into the business session now. If everyone could look at their agendas so that we can start. The first item on the agenda is an item that came through our steering committee, but reflects many months, actually almost a year of work on behalf of a task force that this board worked very assiduously on over the last year related to inclusivity on our playgrounds. I'm going to turn there. Penny? Sorry, do we have another speaker? Oh, hi.
Yes, I had filed one of those yellow pages, and also one of my neighbors yielded her 1 minute to myself also.
Can you get your name and your...
Yes, I'm Joseph Bolanos, and I'm the president of West 76th Street Park Block Association. I'd like...
Right. Sorry, that's...
No, open community, the remarks.
This is in the business session, which is coming up in just about a half an hour or so.
Right, but is it open remarks?
You signed up for the business session and the preservation committee, so...
2 of them, actually.
Did you sign a yellow sheet of paper?
There's 2 topics, 32 West 76 and Shake Shack.
Okay, I guess Shake Shack is the public session. We just don't have a yellow sheet with your name on it.
Okay, so
Please you have 1 minute, so tell us what's on your mind.
So I can do Shake Shack and then come do the other one? Okay, 1 minute. I'd like to thank the Small Business Committee for holding over the Shake Shack vote for the enclosed cafe, which the hearing will be tomorrow. So I'm asking that the board tonight either hold it over or reject the enclosed cafe. Shake Shack, back in 2008, Randy Garuti, who's now the CEO of Shake Shack, told a committee of this board when they asked, we're very concerned about the lines going out and spilling over into the sidewalk like in Bryant Park. Garuti guaranteed to this board that was not going to occur and that they designed the 77th Street 366 Columbus Avenue store to prevent that. Nothing could be farther from the truth. In the last 7 years, the congestion resulting from Shake Shack, it's not only dangerous, but it's chronic. So the main problem here, as I described it to the committee, is design. They really have a bad problem with design, and the enclosed cafe right now extends 3 feet from the entrance. I respectfully ask this body to reject the enclosed cafe and to send them back to the drawing board.
Thank you. So it will be discussed tomorrow night, as you mentioned. George Michelle, do you want to add anything?
Elizabeth, just a quick note. The congestion issue we're quite aware of, and I personally have been there twice to speak to their manager, because what they did promise us when we granted their initial enclosed cafe application was that they would assign a quote-unquote ambassador to make sure that the lines were, did not interfere with pedestrian traffic. So that's on our radar, and that's something that we'll be discussing with them at the meeting tomorrow.
Great, thank you. This is how they're wrangling people. They're not. Okay, so thank you very much.
And we'll make sure your comments are recorded for the record and reflected tomorrow night at the meeting. So, okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. Okay, so we're going to move on to the first item. As I was mentioning before, we had an incredible amount of work done by a task force related to inclusivity on playgrounds. Catherine DeLazaro shepherded that effort really from start to finish with the assistance and guidance of a lot of people around this board table. I'm going to turn the meeting over for her. She's going to give about a 10-minute presentation. They will be meeting again in October, so we'd like to ask, unless, a couple of questions tonight, and then further questions will get answered in October. But it's a fascinating, really interesting project that hopefully could be replicated citywide. So, Catherine DeLazaro.
So in the past year, the Inclusive Playground Task Force has facilitated a robust community-driven process to develop a framework for the design of inclusive playgrounds at Bloomingdale. This resolution outlines and describes that design framework and is calling for the task force to continue to facilitate this process, to engage and participate in the Department of Parks and Recreation's scoping process to ensure and support the development of an inclusive playground design based on this design framework that's outlined in the resolution. The resolution was unanimously adopted by steering in July, and we're hoping the same thing happens tonight. And we have Karen Spraggs here, who's a parent who's been involved in this process in the last year since the beginning, and she's going to say a few words, and then we can take any questions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Like Catherine said, I have a son who is physically disabled, and I'm also an advocate who sits on the board for PI, Parents for Inclusive Education, and ARISE, another education-based program for children. 16% of the parks in New York City are accessible for children. 16%. That is a drop in the bucket. What we plan to do, this amazing group, and there's more that have dedicated so much time, is develop a plan that we can bring citywide that is creative and innovative to a level that we build a community, just like you guys here are working as a group in a community, that we build communities for children to work together to learn from each other. One of the things I did when my son couldn't go to playgrounds and play with friends, I have an older son also, so my experience is that when he was young, we had a great time. Socioeconomic, ethnic diversity, just New York is an amazing place, and it starts in the playgrounds. For my younger son, that didn't happen. So we went on hikes. We took videos of about 15 different playgrounds in New York City. There's one playground on the Upper West Side of 70th Street that considers an accessible playground. It has one ramp. My son's experience there and all the other ones, we had him rank, and I showed the video to this amazing team. Out of all 15 playgrounds we went to, his favorite was the High Line. The High Line was not meant as an accessible playground, but the universal design implements that were made, it's a barrier-free ramped space, makes him feel free, it makes him included, and there's no barriers for him to play. So my two thoughts I hope I can leave you with is that this team needs to stay involved in the process because they're passionate and they have the creative and innovative ideas that will help build a plan that we can take to the city, and that next time you see somebody in a wheelchair who is differently able, give them a smile.
Can you explain the difference between universal design and ADA accessibility?
Sure. And anyone else from the task force can jump in, and to maybe Paige, who she's familiar with universal design. So we define an inclusive playground as one that's designed for social inclusion. And that's based on the goals and principles of universal design, or design for all, which is basically the idea that not only can kids who are differently able get into the space, but then once they're in the space, all children can play on all the equipment and navigate the area. So everybody can participate in everything, as opposed to ADA accessibility, which is the idea, which basically designs space so that people can get in, but then there's, it may be segregated according to ability or disability. So that there might be some equipment that's kind of tacked on but marginal, that's marginal for kids that are differently able. Yeah. Ethel, there's a microphone. Oh, sorry.
So some of us went out to the parks that we were told were ADA accessible. Hardly, okay? Partially, okay? And those are the ones that are, that have signs that say they are. So a simple thing like swings. There are swings that everyone can fit into, no matter what their abilities are. And some of these parks have them, but there was one of those swings on the side. No integration. There were accessible ramps, but once you're up there, there's not too much you can do, okay, if you are wheelchair bound and you have other issues. So it appears that it's accessible, but it's the philosophy. The idea has to be, how do we bring children of different abilities, of all different abilities, into the same space to interact? And the best thing that I saw in one of the presentations was one of these geodomes. Generally, you see kids climbing, very able-bodied kids climbing. But there are things you can have going on inside, around, that everyone can do. So you don't have to be a great climber to participate in that area. But then there's the other part. If a child is autistic and doesn't want to be, involved right away, there are paths around where you can get involved. The children who are not wanting to do vigorous activity, there can be areas where you can do things, but it's not so difficult. It's not just for the most able-bodied. So we want to make it, it's not just for children with disabilities, okay? It's for children of all abilities to be integrated, to learn together. And the last element is it doesn't happen even if you put the stuff there, okay? You get the best models for this inclusive playground. A part of what we're going to be doing is engaging the school, but then beyond the school day, because it's a parks department and a board of ed, co-control, people trained to bring the children together, to introduce them to how the equipment can be used and how they can get together, and to the social integration idea. And so that'll make it happen. Just putting the stuff there doesn't always do it. So it's a long journey, but a worthwhile one. And the task force is going strong. We have the support of every elected official who's come, of parents, of the schools, of many CBOs. And it's going to be great because not just for Bloomingdale School and playground, but also as a model for the city and maybe beyond. So, listen, every month we're going to bring up some new stuff and moving on, and we're ready. Why don't you tell about the grant we got already?
Well, the Department of Parks and Recreation received a $400,000 grant from Gail Brewer, which was announced at the last meeting. And we are hopeful and optimistic that the playground will receive additional funding.
I think Ethel has the final question, or Ethel Page.
This is, of course, an extremely wonderful
effort, and you all are to be thanked for educating all of us in this wonderful effort. I have just one question, because I actually don't understand this phrase, and that is number 8 in your areas of improvement. What does culturally appropriate aesthetics mean?
So that's a component of goals and principles of universal design. So that's a component of the goal of universal design. And the basic idea is that the physical design reflects the local culture and history. So an example might be including, Shelley had the idea to include flowers, because the name of Bloomingdale originates from, I think, the Dutch word for flower. There might be another idea is to include murals or that reflect local culture, so that it's, and the idea is that it should reflect ethnic and racial and linguistic diversity of the community as well, not just all kinds of bodily diversity.
Well, if I may just suggest, your examples are interesting. I don't think the words that you chose necessarily convey the variety of the examples, and perhaps that could be worked on. It really sounds a little,
that also would hear,
it's 3 words pulled together which don't necessarily describe or explain what you're trying to do, and I think it would be helped a great deal if you could be somewhat clear about it, and I think there are ways to do that.
It would also include the community being involved in making those decisions, right?
We're almost saying too much about for those 3 words, which don't really do that. That's my own.
That's really helpful feedback. And if you have suggestions, we would love to know.
Yeah.
Now?
I just want to add that the real purpose of this resolution is to make sure that the community board and the task force is explicitly involved in the scoping process with the Parks Department, which is generally not involved. The Parks process is very usually once the capital project is commenced, it's an internal process of the Parks Department. This resolution is specifically to request, in keeping with the inclusive methodology, our continued engagement in our scoping process. So that's why we're having a resolution. And that's why we hope that it's a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Put it right.
I just want to support this group because when I was asked to participate, I think the one thing that I can offer is that this is not a code requirement. It is not a building code. It doesn't apply just to playgrounds. What interested me is quality of design for everyone. And my goal in getting involved is to keep giving advice and definitions where I can, but also to encourage other areas beyond the park and in schools, because schools are incredibly one-sided in terms of you can only sit in a small chair or you can sit in a big chair. And it's just very difficult. So the lesson that I learned, and I got involved in this actually through preservation, to find other ways of ramping and using buildings to educate people and get them in, is that it is a set of guidelines that help solve problems where anomalies exist. And I can't think of a better project for the board to support than play areas to start with, because it's common sense. It actually is better than ADA because people don't like to do things by law. It's less expensive because you have the creativity, so there's much more flexibility in the quality of the design. And frankly, it's good to get kids involved as well, because there is a program, as many of these professional programs like the AIA has, to get kids involved in looking and creating their own environment. So I'm thrilled with this board. I backed into this by accident, but I think
this should be supported on so many levels.
Well, my question's been called.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Second. All those in favor? And 40 in favor? Opposed? 0, abstaining? 0, opposed? 0.
Congratulations. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item. Business and consumer issues have a number of cafe licenses and renewals to discuss.
Okay, this is number 2, and hello everybody, and we have a committee meeting tomorrow. You're all welcome to that meeting. We're going to have an exciting year. I see everybody's all ramped up. This is good. Okay. Oh yeah, Howard, this is for you too. We're gonna, Howard, hello. We're gonna look at the cafe guidelines again, right? And you're gonna help us out. And in particular, did you know there's no cafe regs for rooftops or rear yards? So keep that on your radar. Yeah. So, number 2, it's, there are 3 SLA applications. I guess we bundled that into number 2. 286 Columbus, Wine and Roses, 428 Amsterdam, Crave Fish Bar. This is the former Brother Jimmy's spot. And 450 Amsterdam, the Dead Poet. Wine and Roses and Dead Poet are really a change of stockholder. Whenever you take one off, put one on, you have to go through the whole process. And Crave Fish Bar is a brand new operation, like I said, in the site of the former Brother Jimmy's. And we voted unanimously for this, so we're asking for your vote for the liquor licenses for these 3 venues.
No question.
All those in favor? I have 37 in favor. Those opposed? 0 abstaining. One second. Are you guys voting?
We voted all 3.
You're voting for? Okay, 38 for, 0, 39 for. Again, opposed? 0 abstaining. 0 to pause. 0. So that carries 39 to 0 to 0 to 0.
Thank you kindly. Number 3 is an application for 225 Columbus Bistro Cassis. They didn't show up to the meeting, so this is a disapproval without prejudice. That means they get another shot. Please vote against it. It's a procedural thing.
Can we bundle that with number 5, which is also a disapproval? Without prejudice?
It's a different type of application.
Even if they're both disapprovals without prejudice?
Yeah, one's a liquor license, the other one's a cafe. So we're just gonna vote on 3. I'm asking for you to disapprove without prejudice.
All those in favor of disapproving without prejudice? I have 40 opposed, 0 abstaining, 0 to pause, 0, 40, 0, 0 to 0.
Thank you. Number 4 is a new bird bath on at 274 Columbus. We got support from the bid in the area. We voted, I'm sorry, this is an unenclosed cafe. Yes, for 4 tables and 8 seats only. And we voted for this unanimously. And as I said, we got the support of the local bid on this, glowing support. So we're asking for you to vote in favor of this cafe at 274 Columbus, 4 tables and 8 seats.
Other questions?
All those in favor? I 39 opposed, 0 abstaining, 0 for cause, 0, 39, 0, 0, 0.
Thank you. And finally, number 5 is the enclosed cafe renewal for Shake Shack. And maybe it's told at the meeting, so again, this is a disapproval without prejudice, FYI. We're hoping they're going to be at the meeting tomorrow because they're on the agenda. So we're asking your disapproval without prejudice.
All those in favor? $38, opposed, abstaining, 1, for cause, 0, 38, 0, 1, 0.
Okay, thank you. And once again, if you know anybody on another community board who can be help for our B2B at the end of October, just
Again, that date is October 22nd, right?
October 22.
22 at the Historical Society.
And it's again, it's a networking wine reception, so it's going to be a catered event. Not that would be for you not to come or to come, and there'll be some wine circling.
Thank you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the land use committee to Richard and Paige. I want to thank their committee again for holding the meeting last week during the Labor Day week, and for those members who attended. I know it was a long meeting, and thank you for taking the time to do that.
I really couldn't hear anything anyone else said tonight, so if you can't hear me, please raise your hand. Good. See that? Okay. Can you hear better now? Okay. All right. This is an application that you all recall several years ago. CB7 was instrumental in amending the zoning resolution to permit buildings on Columbus and Amsterdam to sort of infill where they have plazas or setbacks from the street, to put in one-story community facility or retail spaces. We reserved the right, or the city reserved the right to pass on whether or not the addition added to the streetscape or was keeping with the neighborhood architecture, etc., and also whether the rights of tenants were preserved. We had a hearing on September 3rd, and the resolution to disapprove is before you. We have 3 speakers associated with the developer. I don't know which order you want to proceed in.
Hello, Matthew Klein. I'm the architect on the project. I'll just give a brief synopsis of the design. Our design objective is to create a continuous street frontage that greatly enhances the streetscape and pedestrian experience along Columbus Avenue and 92nd Street. The first images on the slides, I don't know if anyone can see. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. The first images in the slides taken from the corner of 93rd and Columbus Avenue show the existing condition at the upper left-hand corner, as well as a rendering illustrating how we intend to transform an underutilized plaza into a new one-story enlargement that includes retail, lobby, and landscape green room. The existing double row of trees along Columbus Avenue inspired us to propose an addition which complements this greenway frontage, while also engaging the streetscape by providing a visual connection with our green roof. Our design adds to the Columbus Avenue streetscape through the transparency of the facade and the rhythm and movement of its gently undulating roof. This project also includes a new lobby for the residential building.
Is this a call?
The second rendering, which is a view towards Columbus Avenue from 93rd Street, illustrates the new residential entry that creates a more gracious lobby, finished in stone and wood so it will feel friendly and warm, while having an abundant window inviting a natural light. Finally, our intent, as you can see in these renderings, was to create a vibrant, active streetscape for the neighborhood through a visually interesting building design that is compatible with the existing tower and engaging to pedestrians. Thank you.
I wanted to address two things. One was about process, and the other was I wanted to speak. Sorry, Deirdre Carson. I'm an attorney at Greenberg Traurig, and we represent the applicant. I wanted to address two things. The first is a little bit about the process by which we got here, and the second was we had some very specific comments on the text of the resolution, and I hope that we will be able to provide those comments in addition to the prepared remarks. The process that brought us here actually started several years ago with meetings at city planning while Amanda Burton was still in the office of chair. The staff at that time welcomed the design with the articulated roof and facade, the movement of the lobby to create a different lobby environment with glass that was open and from which you could view a green, attractive setting. As well as how this proposal utilized the site's existing trees to tie the green roof terrace into the pedestrian sidewalk experience. There were some back and forth with changes in personnel, and the project gained momentum about a year ago in June when we began our formal blueprint process. And then subsequent dialogue over the year, the project's design was modified, but not significantly, and we got very warm feedback from the staff at city planning. We've also, during that time, met several times with Councilperson Rosenthal's staff and several times with Borough President Brewer's staff, and on all four of those meetings, the design was warmly received. We met with the Tenants Association, you'll hear more about that from Adam Roman, who represents the ownership, and presented the design to the entire tenant body of the building in December of last year, and the design met with praise. So we met 4 times with your committee. I'll finish up this, and obviously I'm not going to have a chance to speak to the text of the resolution. We met 4 times with members of the committee, and it was only in the 3rd of those meetings that we were made aware of the very, very strong negative feelings of the members of some of the members. There was one person who wasn't negative about the design. So it came as quite a shock this late in the process when there had been so much positive feedback about this design. There are, we believe, several mistakes in the resolution, in the statement of facts, or a description of the law, and I would be happy to meet with members of the committee to speak to that issue, but my time's run out.
I'm trying to get to just to get maybe input related.
I emailed you this morning, but I sent it to your personal email asking how you were doing, and we obviously didn't meet up.
Good. Hello, my name is Adam Roman. I'm with Stellar Management. We're the owner and the developer. I'll speak quickly to respect the 1-minute time. As a follow-up to Deirdre's explanation of our efforts to engage with city planning, the council member's office, the borough president's office at city planning, we've also worked extensively to work with the Tenants Association and the residents in the building. We've had numerous meetings and discussions with the tenants associations, and as Deirdre said, presented to them last December. At all of those meetings, I can personally attest to the fact that the design has been universally well received. With regards to the some of the specifics as it relates to the tenants, I'd like to take a moment to note some of the accommodations that we've agreed to by working in collaboration with the tenants. We are not charging MCIs for any of the public area improvements. We will not charge any individual apartment rent increases for the second floor apartments that are getting new private outdoor terraces. We will be upgrading the building security with additional key fobs and security cameras. The width of the lobby corridor is 30% larger than required by ADA guidelines and 88% larger in front of the elevators. We're paying for the TA's engineering and legal fees. We're upgrading the elevator that's servicing the basement because the laundry room is moving down to the basement, so that was one of the points of concern. The basement is actually going to be upgraded at the same finish level as the lobby, so it's not going to be a dark and dingy basement. It's going to be similar to the lobby in terms of its finish. And we're increasing the size of the community room, adding additional washer dryers, instituting a rent reduction during the time of construction, and a permanent rent reduction going forward. This has all been part of the back and forth in the dialogue with the Tenants Association. So really, in summary, we just wanted to use this as an opportunity to let you know that we are very respectful and conscious of the public process and working with the tenants in particular. Thank you very much.
We have another speaker, Sharon.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Sharon Cans. I'm in the sister building right next door. Stella owns the 50 West 93rd Street building. And so we're right next door. We've always operated as a sister building. In other words, the plaza that they use, the 70, we utilize also. And vice versa, they use our park as well as we do. So needless to say, that goes away for us. And so that makes us unhappy. It's not underutilized. We have joint fairs at the plaza, and it's going to change the whole way the block functions, because I don't know anybody on that block who doesn't go through the plaza at least 2-3 times a day. It's just a place that people walk through. Having addressed that, this project gets bigger and bigger as we speak. It started out at 10,000 square feet, 10,200 square feet, then 14,730, and now I'm looking at 16,000. They've talked about trees now going to beautify a block. Well, 2 of the trees in our building are dead. 2 of them at 70 are already dead. So I don't know if they're going to keep their word on that one. All I can say is that it changes the whole way the block operates and the way the block appears. And I hope you take that into consideration.
Just by way of clarification, I don't know when the process started with city planning, but the first time anyone on the community board was aware of this project was less than 2.5 months ago. And we made our comments known as soon as we heard about it, as soon as we discussed it with the owner. As far as the block, the tenants are concerned, it was difficult at our meeting to figure out who actually represented the Tenants Association. There was one gentleman there who was the former head of the Tenants Association who seemed to be in favor of this project. And there were 10 or 15, maybe 20 tenants who showed up, all of whom were very much opposed to the project. So it's hard to know. I mean, if the developer says they talked to some tenants, I don't doubt their word, but there is a very strong view among many tenants in the building. They had a petition that the amenities inside make the building worse rather than better. And this is sort of, it was surprising to us because there is going to be a nice little rooftop sitting area for the tenants. So you would think that they would want this. But the comments were overwhelmingly negative, except for that one gentleman. Yes.
I just wanted to make a couple of points in relation to what the attorney for the developer stated, as well as a couple of points in addition to Richard's observations. It is commendable and part of the process that the developers and others went to the council member and the borough president as they would do. Being warmly received is perhaps a definition that is open to a conversation, and that you are surprised about this. We all participated in the process, and everybody was acting in a responsible fashion, and the community board had its turn, as Richard said, when it came to the community board in May and June. In general, I did not attend one meeting in July, but otherwise attended others, and I was impressed with the careful observations and dialogue and responsible discussion on the part of the members of the Land Use Committee who struggled with all of this, and some agreed on some points, and one member who could speak for himself departed in one particular from the overall thrust of this resolution. Second, so that while Amanda Burton and others developed the text years ago, the text is subject to interpretation on the part of the community as we see different examples, and this is the third one, and we have been learning about the particular designs and also about the interpretation of the text, and we'll probably try to make some recommendations to the Department of City Planning for perhaps some revisions and clarity about the way the text was written. Secondly and lastly, the tenants who came to the last meeting on September 3rd, of whom I think there were 15 or 20, were concerned about the changes to the interior, particularly. That's not exactly within the text, but nevertheless, it was relevant, and they were concerned about changes in lobbies and access and locations of other services such as the laundry room and others which are detailed in the resolution. It may be that there were tenants who did not come to the meeting who did not feel the same way as the 20 or so who did come, but the committee did try to respond to some of the concerns as it was within the purview of the committee to do so, and that's reflected in the section on the interior. The responsibility of the community board was primarily to deal with the text, and which, as Richard said, and Paige has detailed in the minutes, it's to do with specifics, but particularly on whether the changes enhance the surrounding community. I'm just paraphrasing that, and that's what the text addresses. In general, I think everybody commended the accessibility and communication of the developer, and everybody struggled to do the best it could, but it was not a process that went from warm reception to opposition. In fact, it wasn't that way at all, and we all acted as well as we could in this instance.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that one thing we learned through the meetings was that although this building is not a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community, the large percentage of the tenants are seniors and have concerns for now and the future about accessibility and the long distances from the entrance to the elevators, the movement through the lobby area, a whole series of issues, and that we need to be conscious in all changes that take place, particularly in Manhattan. Almost 20% of Manhattan shortly will be people who are seniors, and it's an aging population, and many of our buildings reflect that. So I think the presentation we gave by the developer and legal assistants and everybody was very thorough and very responsive, but when it came down to it, it didn't meet the tenants' concerns, and even the design concern was it was an interesting design, but we saw an out of place, unnecessary design, that the effect on people and on not only tenants but passers-by and people who are pedestrians and neighbors is an important concern. So, and the last thing, which was one of my big concerns, was the security of the play area, which is a lovely play area. But I'm familiar with the area and safety, where playground has, pretty easy access from the street is worrisome.
So I just wanted to clarify why we're voting on A and B separately. You'll notice on your voting sheets. And so that was a kindness done by the committee for me, because I was the individual who opposed our resolution as to A. So I completely agree with the sense of the committee as to 6B about addressing the needs of the tenants, and that more can be done. And we have a laundry list of things that should be addressed prior to approving the development. And I stand with that 100%. I just very quickly wanted to oppose the first 6A, because I actually think I like the design quite a bit. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing, it's fresh, it's new, it's something good for the Upper West Side. There was a disagreement on the committee, and so that's why I just wanted to clarify, that's why we're voting on them separately.
I just wanted to add before we take more comments from the community board, I was looking up the notice that we had from the electeds, and I don't have an actual printed copy, but the issues were the laundry room and relocating for an elderly population, moving something that is at the ground floor that can give surveillance over the play area, because they're entertaining their grandchildren while they're doing their laundry kind of action or activity. The other issue was the trash, and to commend the design team, we did, the first iteration we saw was in May of this year, which is actually quite rapid for land use to turn around 3 meetings in 3 months to respond to a project. And they have made changes, no doubt. But there are some flaws that we think that diminish the amenity and level of service for the residents, and that was the biggest issue the more we learned. So the other comments from Helen were having to do with, I believe, security and just the tenants' amenity and access around the building. The borough president, as far as we know, hasn't submitted anything in writing, but she's told us in the past has been very interested in streetscape. She's been there for every other project in the neighborhood, so we don't know. So I'm going to turn it back to questions, because this is a turning point in these projects, because it does look very different, and it treats the program that we've been handling at 4 other sites very differently. So can I start with Peter, because he put his hand up, and then we'll go down the table, Jeanette, that way, and we'll come back up the other side. Peter?
I was one of the members of the committee that found the design somewhat lacking. In principle, the idea is very good. It's consistent with what's going on Columbus Avenue, having retail go out to the street line, to the building property line, and not having plaza sit there pretty empty. And I go by this plaza a lot, and while people cut across, there isn't very much there. But the design of the retail with the wings that go up, looking like it's going to fly away, to me makes no sense. I mean, you have the floor above where you have a chance to have more facility out there, but instead you have the slope and you can't really use that. So I think it needs a lot more work before it can be approved the way it is now.
Peter, can you pass the mic?
There, Mike's. She has.
I just wanted to point out that my issues was, well, my first question was not having been here for the text, interpreting the text. It seems that while I'm a big fan of enlightening the streetscape and the sidewalk with commercial activity, that we need to do such in balance with the residents who live in these buildings. And it seemed that in this case, the commercial space was being maximized at the expense of some of the basic services of tenants, the lobby seemed rather narrow, how they access to the elevator. There were questions about the laundry room, but we did hear from the tenants about this interior space. Also, the use of the plaza, while I too, when I walk by, it doesn't seem very active, and it seems a piece of the past. By shifting to a garden on the second level, you're going to have different types of activities. So when the community spoke about having sort of fairs or community events, the garden on the second roof or on the second level doesn't really allow itself for those sort of activities. It's just a passive seating area. And then also the trash was being proposed to be moved from from Columbus Avenue to West 92nd Street. And so we asked that commercial pickup of trash not have to drive down the residential 92nd Street, that it remain on Columbus Avenue. And that's it, those were my comments.
Now,
Hear me? Hello? I actually just have a question because it's, Richard indicated that there was difficulty finding out who the tenant leader was. And then the testimony from the owner indicated that there had been some sort of negotiation where concessions were indeed made on behalf of the tenants. So I'm confused as to whether or not there is proper representation from the tenants and whether or not an actual negotiation took place by which those concessions were part of the negotiation.
No, I have no reason to doubt what David Carson said. What the impression I got at our meeting, there were maybe 20 or so tenants there. Only one, who was the former head of the Tenants Association, who's since been replaced.
Right, I understand that. Who's the current head of the tenants?
Current head, I think, but I don't know, was there.
It's Hector Cardona. He's the current head of the Tenants Association. Well, he's the individual that we've been working with. He was one of
Can you
the
confirm that there was a negotiation that is basically on behalf of the Tenants Association?
He didn't discuss that. He just simply, his entire presentation had to do with his unhappiness with the fact that there was a non-binding vote of the tenants that rejected this proposal by a very substantial margin, I think 2-1 or something. And he was upset that because the vote was supposed to be non-binding, and the other tenants who were there mentioned the vote to us. They also said they had petitions with, I don't know how many signatures.
No, but generally speaking, the Tenants Association has a set of rules by which they vote on an accord. And then the representation, the president or whoever, is allowed to speak on behalf of the Tenants Association. If such an agreement was made, I don't care how many tenants were in the room disagreeing, if the Tenants Association had, as a matter of its structure, voted for.
That's not right. There was a clear
Yeah,
dysfunction.
Okay,
we're not able to.
So it's unclear
Yes.
whether or not there was an accord made.
Hector did not, while we were there, didn't say that the Tenants Association voted in favor of it.
Okay.
The only thing we could discern was that everybody agreed there was a petition with a large number of signatures, and that there was a substantial majority of the tenants who attended the Tenants Association meeting voted against the project.
Okay.
So that's all we know. It's all we can tell. And part of the, it's.
If I may, just to speak to the.
Yeah, hold on a second. It's unfortunate, and nobody's fault that we didn't come on to the scene until late spring, and then the summer intervened, and we might have been able to form a better impression, but all we can do is go by who shows up at the meeting.
Right, and I mean, it seems to me that it would be great if the land use could act as a mediator of some sort and codify these negotiations, which is actually what we do often as a community board.
Well,
to codify the agreed resolve between where the disputes occur like this, so that we could actually, help out the situation.
So the tenants association is represented by Emmeline's office, and we are working with their representation and our representation to in fact document the stuff that I spoke to earlier. And so in the near future, we will have that, to your point, to be able to say, here's something that puts in writing what these agreements are and who the parties involved were in that.
But at this point, that is not a codified result.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think, now, just so you all know, the person who was brought in by the Tenants Association to help them has been Helen Rosenthal's office, but she too got in late. And that's why the issue of finding, not finding who got there, who didn't get there, can you send a vote in, has created a great deal of problems. But I can attest that of the residents that were there, not one person was able to stand up and support it, which was very disconcerting.
Understood. I just wanted to clarify where we are, because we're voting tonight.
I know. That's the problem. Let's start, can we do the last on this side? And we'll let you go ahead, and then we'll start down this line.
I'd like to just respond to the streetscape issue. That particular part of Columbus Avenue has some pretty boring buildings, and it would be really nice to see something that didn't look like the 1960s fine fair supermarkets on that corner. I don't know if you guys know Fine Fair, this one up on Dykeman and Broadway, there's one down on Grand Street, they look just like that. It's not very innovative and it doesn't add to the context of the street at all. As far as the Tenants Association, yes, you've got to work something out with these folks. They live there, they have to be able to function comfortably, especially seniors and children, and safety issues are all paramount there. But truly, this does not do anything to enliven the street. It looks like there's going to be some other big box store there, which we really don't need. We really need to encourage small business owners. This would be a great opportunity to do so. And I must say that I agree with you in terms of the design style and volume.
The commercial garbage on 92nd Street concerns me. What type of garbage and how much of it there'll be?
We were supposed to go down this side. I was trying to keep track of everybody involved. Can we start down here as planned? We'll come back around to you. Then we'll get your questions. Please.
I'm going to shout because I'm right under the speaker and don't want feedback. I mostly have a question, which is so much of this seems to hinge on the tenants, and I don't have a clear sense of who the tenants are. So a number of questions I have are, yeah. I'm just worried about feedback because I'm right under the speaker. Seems okay. So my questions are about who the tenants are, just to have a better sense, because so much of this revolves around the tenants. So I'd love to know the number of tenants, whether it's rentals or if it's co-op, how many of the tenants are regulated, how many are long-time residents of the building, how many are aging. I know people said that there are a lot of aging tenants, whether it's low-income housing, and also more about the Tenants Association, how many members there are, the process for outreach to make sure that they are representative of the building. Someone had mentioned the petition, what % of the overall tenant body can sign the petition? And then just two other questions, what retail is proposed, and I share the concern about garbage on 92nd Street.
Garbage.
So that the last two questions?
The last two is, do we know what retail is being proposed? And
I guess the answer to that question is no. We don't know what retail is being proposed. There was some mention of restaurants, there was some mention of other shops. We don't think it would be Dwayne Reed because none of the proposed stores are large enough. But there is no way to control, and nor should we, control the identity or nature of the retail. They have to be within use group 6, and maybe somebody smarter than me can say what that includes, but beyond that, we have no control over that. We have no real control over signage. But that's just the nature of the beast. We have to accept that. In terms of the identity of the tenants, we don't know, I mean, no one's taken a survey. I would say that most of the tenants who appeared at our committee meeting were, I don't know if they were elderly, but they were older. A lot of them said they'd been there 30 or 40 years.
Long-term neighbors.
What?
Long-term community.
Long-term, yes. Long-term neighbors, they've been there. It's it was a West Side Urban Renewal Area building, which West Side Urban Renewal has expired, but my sense is that most of the apartments are regulated.
That's correct. It's a rental property. There are about just over 200 units. And it's a little less than 20% fair market, a little over 80% rent stabilized.
And how long has Sterling been involved in the building?
Excuse me?
How long, your company's, I'm sorry, how long has Stellar been involved in the company?
We've owned the building since about 2006, 2007.
Oh, I just wanted to say something a little different. I read the minutes and I've heard the discussion, and I think there have been a lot of great points on both sides. But the point I wanted to make is slightly different. I think it's very difficult to get anything done in New York City. New York City has a reputation for being a place where it's very difficult to get something done and very expensive to get something done. So I just wanted to throw into the mix and to say why I'm on the borderline on this particular vote. And that is, there's something in the mix, and that is that maybe there should be not a bias, but maybe some bit of constraint when looking at these projects, because again, it's so difficult to get something done, and retail is so sorely needed that maybe these kinds of projects should get the benefit of the doubt when it's on the borderline, because amenities like retail are so important. Again, I think it could be a lot more attractive. I just wanted to raise the other consideration of when a project is on the borderline, maybe again it should be, because of the difficulty and expense of getting things done, it should be given, the weight should come down on the side of doing the project.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly respond. This is our fourth one. The fifth one died on the vine. And most of them have taken a year to get this far. And there have been numerous. We worked with the community board. Penny was the ombudsman to make sure that letters got transferred and everybody came to every meeting or whatever. This is the first one that came quickly. And to the attorney's credit and to the client, they actually laid over, or we requested more time so we could try to understand the project better. The problem is the more we tried to understand, the more complicated it became, and we weren't getting the answers. So to Mel's point about the tenants, there's mixed messages. I know there are some tenants in the audience this evening, but they came too late to be able to make a statement. But I think their voice was very clear in some of the issues. As Richard said to me at the meeting, he said no tenant stood up and actually said, wow, that's a great idea. Everybody felt that they were losing something. And that's not a strong point to be able to corral a resolution.
Those are very important facts to me, but the fact that it could be aesthetically slightly more pleasing, I don't think should do it.
I think it's hard to say what was in the minds of every committee member. I think nobody liked the design, and maybe if the tenants had come and said, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, we would have voted differently. But they didn't. They said it's stale bread.
There are a lot of things on the North Side that could be improved aesthetically. This is more retail, but there are other concerns.
I have to say that the other projects that we approved, we worked in minute detail with the developers over a long period of time before it ever got to you. That didn't happen. Mark?
Thanks. Quick points. The purpose of this is to activate the streetscape, and I think that's a worthy goal. And I think that the resolution actually does acknowledge that in general we favor the infill of this broad plaza area to make that happen. That led to one of my points that I wanted to mention here, which is that in addition to the wings, on the roof, there are these alcoves that have the laudable goal of preserving the second row of trees along that wide sidewalk. But my concern is that one of the things that really activates retail in this kind of a setting is the possibility for restaurants with outdoor cafes, and the alcoves, I think, are inconsistent with that. So I think that that's a point that that leads me to support the resolution. The other is that while we're talking a lot about whether or not the tenants are properly represented or who represented them and so forth, the findings that we're required to make are objective, not subjective. It's not only a survey. And I think that the resolution does a very good job of addressing the objective criteria and matching them with the realities of the design. I happen to agree with Brian that it's great to have unusual design in this area. The building as it currently exists is not a stellar, pardon, that's the wrong word. It's not a shining example of great 60s architecture. And could stand some innovative approaches. My concern there is that I think the materials that are used and the slope and its lack of ADA accessibility more than meets that finding, as well as the concerns about the interior meet that finding on an objective basis without having to talk about whether the tenants, which tenant thought what about what. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Whoever grabs the mic.
They're passing it down.
Does this work? Okay. I just wanted to say a quick word because I think, thanks Brian for speaking up about the design. I don't know that I'm, so immediately sold on this particular design, but I do think that it adds vibrancy and it would also eliminate what I consider a really anomalous condition on Columbus Avenue and this portion of the Upper West Side. It really, to me, when I walk by there on my way from my gym to the Whole Foods, is it looks like a desert. Aside from the playground area, it's really quite deserted. And you really feel the depth of the recess between the street wall plane that's consistent to the south and to the north, and this one where there's just this incredible open plaza that I appreciate that there must be wonderful programs that occur in this plaza, select times of the year, but I have never observed them. And so I think that it would really go a long way towards, really helping to reintegrate this building into the life of the Upper West Side, the streetscape of the Upper West Side. The other thing I was going to say is that I think the ownership team, particularly if they've been meeting with the city planning and other elected officials that span several mayoral administrations, this is to be commended, and I would hope that that track record of making such good due diligence efforts would continue in following through with the concerns that have been raised about meeting the needs of the tenants.
Everybody on the committee expressed the view. We did not reject this on the grounds that we want the plaza to remain. Everybody expressed the view that we'd like to see a project done here. And it's actually in the resolution. So, yeah. Let's start down here and come back.
Linda, and then we're going to resume our roll on the side.
I have a very quick question, probably predicated on our electric paranoia over here. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing a lot of glass, which is great, and we're talking floor to ceiling windows and all. So in terms of the design, I look at that in terms of how it adds to the vibrancy of any streetscape. But my question is, how many retail units are we talking about? What are the sizes? Because the dreaded big box word was made here. I can't see how that's physically feasible. But do we have any idea what we're talking about?
Yeah, there are
five units. Okay, so these are relatively small. This is a mom and pop spot.
Be
Yeah.
a 20 grade.
Great, okay, thanks. Thank you for the clarification. Oh, we did that, yeah.
Okay, where were we?
Louisa, I want to talk about the adverse impacts because it was very, very clear about the people who were there that they were elderly, maybe aging. They talked about people in wheelchairs and certainly people in walkers. And what's happened is that the configuration, the reconfiguration of the building has resulted in a loss of proper services for them. Where the lobby at the original lobby opened immediately onto the elevators, there is now a rather circuitous corridor that turns, it's quite narrow, two people with walkers could not pass each other. They all talked about the laundry going into the basement, that this was, again, a loss of services that they have now, and this is for people who talked about having been there 40 years. This is that instead of helping and kind of thinking about what the population was, while they are trying to expand the retail, which is very understandable, but even the second for what they call the plaza, the planted area, in many ways it's charming, but also it has limited space. The very fact that it is curving up means that a lot of people can't use it. So it provides much smaller space and the kind of passive recreation than it would appear to. So in so many ways, there were adverse impacts, they were not mitigated, and they were not thinking about the population. And we found that that was a problem.
I think back to Jay.
Just wanted to say.
Sorry, I missed, wait.
We had addressed many of these issues with them prior to the September meeting. And most of our concerns were not addressed, including the lobby, including access of narrow corridor with poor access, and the fact that there would not be the way the street with the bump, what is it called, not bump outs, but the alcoves would not permit even to have outdoor dining, or cafe.
Can I jump back and we start down here? Oh, yes. Paul.
I'm only concerned with the commercial space as a restaurant. And now the garbage that's put out there could be attracting rodents, and it's across from a playground. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
I can only address what we learned, and right now, all of the residential garbage, and I see here you're waiting your way, so if I make a misstep, I'm going to turn to you. Their existing residential garbage is picked up on the avenue. The proposal is to keep the trash room on the main level and have it travel eastward and then towards 92nd to a combined commercial and residential garbage area. So the city sanitation would pick up the residential, a commercial hauler would take the other. We pointed out that there's already a garage on that street, and also schools, PS 84, I believe, and then half of Columbia Grammar's building has access on that street as well as on 93rd that Peter has referenced. So the concern was to take the heavy carting vehicles and those that stop off the side street. And to the credit, Adam had mentioned that they would reconsider moving the garbage back to Columbus Avenue. But that means the garbage has to go virtually all the way around the building. You're traversing 100 feet down 92nd and at least 100 feet to the middle of Columbus Avenue. If you remember, we have a bike lane, and because of the turn, there is not an off ramp, but there's a transition from the driving lane to a pullover before you turn. So there were lots of things that we felt had changed, not for the better. They were just more problems for maintenance because they increased the traffic adding 200 feet, whereas right now they go maybe 50 feet to Columbus Avenue. So we look at quality of life issues because they do impact the tenant, and particularly because the garbage will be used in one of the elevators that is used by all the tenants in the building. So we proposed to them, not only this time but before, that the garbage should go out to the basement, use the garage as the ramp to discharge or package and wheel the garbage to the street. But that wasn't accepted. So this is the conundrum that we have. We want the project to go ahead, but God is in the details and with the people living here. And as my colleagues have said, the issue is it's making a hardship for people, not a betterment. So that's my answer to what I've observed. I think, Jay, before it goes, and then we'll pass down.
Paige, I just had a question about the zoning resolution. You cite in the resolution that there are these two areas that have to be satisfied for the project to be approved. And in your resolution, you have them both in quotes, but it's only under the first that you cite the section of the zoning resolution. But is the language of both parts of the, okay, that's my question. Secondly, my observation, I think Brian's dissent on the design part of the resolution is important. I really think fundamentally that these should be, in fact, separate findings. I think they really should be 3 separate findings, because I think the enactment of the zoning resolution really is a determination that the establishment of retail and bringing it out to the property line does in fact enhance the streetscape, and whether the design produces a harmonious relationship, I'm not exactly sure what that means. It's really should really be a separate finding.
The reason it's not, Jay, is that the assumption underlying the zoning resolution is that retail enhances the streetscape.
Right, exactly.
So we're not voting on that. That's a given.
Okay.
What we're voting on is a specific, iteration of the.
All right, well, I'm reading it from the resolution, which says not to make a finding that the enlargement enhances the street.
Yeah, it's like, but retail per se
enhances the street. I agree. And the determination of whether a design promotes a harmonious relationship. Our standard on preservation is whether a design is appropriate, reasonably appropriate to the character of the historic district. These are essentially subjective determinations. So I agree with Howard's observation and with Misha's observation that we need to be, and I would supplement that by saying we need to be a little bit careful when we're evaluating whether a design promotes a harmonious relationship, not to necessarily determine that on our own personal preferences, but it is in fact more a determination of whether this particular design is appropriate. I understand, I've read the resolution, I've read the minutes, and I understand your concerns with the design.
Well, a picture says 1,000 words.
Right.
Do you know if Byron Bell has the plans loaded that we could see? Because I think
we didn't bring the plans.
That's okay. I mean,
the issue here is, unlike other projects, and I'm going to leave Shelley to do my concluding remarks, but unlike other projects where there's a bottom and a top, just like pajama tops, pajama bottoms. Here, the pajama top, the waist is pulled very high. So the scale at the ground level is 19 feet 11, which is very tall. The impact of the upturned corners changes the level up above, which shape. So I know, but I'm just giving you
I'm
an
not
example.
quarreling, I'm not quarreling with your conclusion.
And then what I'm saying, it's very difficult to be subjective because if you're trying to give the elderly an opportunity to use a roof deck and there's sloping surfaces with lounge chairs on certain pads of wood, really, patio areas, it's very difficult. It's a very exciting project. There is no question. Nobody doubts the integrity of what the owner was trying to do or the qualifications of the architect. It's just for our neighborhood to give some flexibility. Our resolution that, this is the fastest landmarks has ever circulated to 50 people over a holiday weekend in 3 days. So we may not be perfect, but I think in this particular case, we need to err on the side of a better project, one that can respond more to tenants, rather than just accepting, oh, it's a new design.
I don't disagree with that, Paige, and
I need to let others.
I think that concern though really seeps into the adverse impact determination, even more than the design.
Just quick co-secretary privilege. It's 9:30 and we have 13 more items. So just so everyone knows.
Michelle, then Ethel, and George, that's it.
I went to the committee meeting because I was excited about the prospect of new retail space, and left assured that there would be no big box store there because of the size of the stores. I agree with Brian as to the aesthetics of this project. And I disagree with you, Mark. I think that you can have an outdoor cafe there because while the space doesn't completely hit the property line, there are like little cutouts. I think it would be those little cutouts, which are not very big, but I'm not an architect, so I can't remember the dimensions. Those cutouts and the second story patio would make it a much more charming place to go to as a restaurant than a place with sheer glass from top to bottom. That being said, I thought I heard here that they're gonna improve the basement where they're gonna do the laundry, they're gonna fix it up, and that there will be no new increases in costs. In fact, some people will benefit from by paying less rent while they're doing construction. And I think all those things are important for people to consider. I live in a building where none of those give backs were given. Not that I guess we deserve it, but I think that's an honest approach to getting the project done. They understand that some of the tenants are inconvenienced and are willing to give back, and putting money in their pocket is the way to do it. I forget, is there a garage on this?
Yes.
Will the garage fees increase?
There's no change in the garage.
Okay, so I like it.
Just, will there be any change in the fees, the rental fees for the garage with the construction?
Wasn't mentioned, and I assume not. It has nothing, this project has nothing to do with the garage.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this changed, but in previous meetings, I think I think the developers said that the residents were against the idea of restaurants in this space. Has that changed?
No.
Just very quickly, and just a distinction, if I may, on the facts versus the subjective opinion. The whole rationale and the reason for this entire text amendment to the zoning resolution is that after 45 years of the West Side Urban Renewal Area being the governing large-scale district between 86 and 96, Amsterdam to Columbia. 87, I beg your pardon, 87 to 97, thank you. That had expired. And retail was not permitted or even advocated, as you know, if you walk the blocks. There is almost no retail in those buildings because that wasn't part of the rationale at the time. At the end of the expiration, the buildings, all of the area reverted to the underlying zoning, the zoning that operates in the area, which among other things permits, it's in the zoning resolution, a C zone of commercial at the street level, hence retail. And in fact, all the city planning, I mean, it actually expired. The community board and others said, okay, we're really glad to see retail at that level for all the reasons that we felt that it was dark, there hadn't been retail, even with all the terrific housing provided at the West Side Urban Renewal. So there has to be retail, and then there were other points included in the text about streetscape and specifics put in by city planning. It was Amanda Burton, maybe some other chair wouldn't have done it that way, stating exactly how much fenestration there should be at the street level, because the rationale was and is that more fenestration makes for better retail. Okay, that's the facts of that. Your point, Jay, about the last clause, the one about enhancing the neighborhood, was a clause admittedly somewhat general, deliberately discussed and included by this community board years ago to allow in these stipulations the ability of the community board to say, if you like, subjectively or whatever way, to say, well, wait a minute, does it also enlarge and enhance other aspects of the community, allowing the community board to do that. So if you all, some of you, like the design, I'm not going to review and take time, of the curves, the upper floors, some other things, then you're going to say, it's okay. And Brian was one person at that time, and maybe there will be more tonight. In general, however, the land use committee worked very hard and determined that there were major questions about the aesthetic and the design. And I want to say lastly, I think everybody, no matter where they were coming from, welcomed that there should be innovations or changes, because nobody was saying this was the greatest building they've ever seen or that it worked for the landscape. So that's the difference. I am not going to go into, but it's up to you to determine what the committee decided on, and that was to say some things about the residents' needs and the way the interior and the services changed. That's also up to you. It's detailed that way, and therefore I think that the vote should occur according to your judgment.
Okay, just a simple evolution in 3 meetings of the committee. I liked the design, and then I realized that although I may aesthetically like a certain design, there are 2 factors. One, does it fit in harmoniously with the area? But second, and maybe more important, what effect does it have on other things? And in this case, the sloping up affects the ability to use the space. And particularly for a building that's largely elderly, it even further restricts the space to be used. So aesthetics, subjective aesthetics, everybody has their own taste, and that's okay, and that's good. But I think in this case, it has 2 negative impacts.
Let me just, very quickly, I just want to address the point that Jay made, because it underlies all of our discussion. It is true that we're called on to make a subjective judgment. And I think, you know, my initial reaction to this project was, why is it being designed this way? And every time we pointed out a particular design matter that we considered weird, the answer was it enhances the retail. That is, the higher the corner window space, the more people will walk into the store. They moved the lobby several feet to the east because they couldn't put retail where they wanted to move the lobby. So they, instead of walking into the building and going directly to the elevators, now there's a kind of a circular route. But every single one of these design features where you say, well, why don't you do it this way? We did it this way because of the retail. And it didn't seem that it evolved organically as a design, but it was more of a solution to how do we maximize the value. So, you know, that is my personal reaction to it. Let me just go over what we're going to be voting on. There are two parts to the resolution. The first part is whether or not we believe that the project enhances the streetscape. I'll read enhances the streetscape and promotes a harmonious relationship with neighboring buildings. The second and separate issue is whether adverse effects created by the project have been eliminated, have been minimized, mitigated, or eliminated, avoided. So we're going to take, because we had the vote of the committee, I think, was 7-1 on the first issue and 8-0 on the second issue. And so because we didn't have unanimity on the first issue, we thought it made sense to split it up. A no vote on either one of these would result in a no vote on the entire project because we have to make both findings. So, any questions about the procedure?
Just to clarify on how, a yes.
Oh, yeah, a yes vote is a vote to disapprove.
So to not make the finding.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so if you're voting yes, you're voting to agree with the committee's sentiment to not make the finding. Okay?
Okay, first vote, that the project does not enhance the streetscape and does not promote a harmonious relationship with other buildings. All those in favor?
Those in favor?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're voting, raise your hand and keep it up. We have 24.
Opposed?
Opposed? We have 12. Abstaining?
2, 3, 4.
1, wait, only I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, and for cause. 0.
Okay, the first resolution carries 24 to 12 to 4 to 0. The second resolution is absence of mitigating or eliminating adverse impacts.
All those.
And a vote in favor is a vote to disapprove.
A vote in favor to not make the finding. A vote in favor is not making the finding. All those in favor? $33. Those opposed? Six. Abstaining? I have 1 for cause, 0.
So this resolution carries vote 33 to 6 to 1 to 0. I want to thank everybody involved here, including the developer, for a cooperative effort. And I know it's a difficult issue, but thanks very much.
Thank you for all of your work on this committee on this. And moving preservation now, the committee has very graciously taken a lot of time as well. They actually met twice over the course of since we last met. and is bundling some of the resolutions, but is going to walk through exactly what they're doing tonight.
Yeah, I just want to take 30 seconds to explain why we have so many applications on this agenda. Last year, with the cooperation of our committee, we instituted an August meeting. And the reason that we did it was because the Landmarks Commission doesn't suspend operations in August. And they would proceed to calendar items before either the committee or the full board would get a chance to review them, and any request that we made to delay the Landmarks Commission process was generally denied. So, as I said, we instituted an August meeting, and this way, we at least get to have the committee review the items and get a resolution to Landmarks on behalf of the committee. And if we didn't do that, we could have 6, 7, 8 weeks of Landmarks hearings without any input from this board. So we appreciate your indulgence. And as Elizabeth said, we normally don't bundle any of these applications because they tend to be complicated and unique. In this case, we did do some bundling. The first group were all applications to do window replacements, which after some discussion, we decided would be appropriate to bundle. And we'll also have a group where Landmarks has also heard the applications, and Gabby's going to explain the resolutions, and we will tell you which ones have been before Landmarks and what the result is. So, hopefully we're hopeful without depriving anyone of the right of review to try and expedite the process. Oh, okay. Yeah, the first one is just a resolution that's been passed by other boards, celebrating 50 years of the enactment of the Landmarks Law, and reciting all the factors that make it wonderful, and we reviewed it, we approved it unanimously, and I would certainly urge you to support it and call the question.
All those in favor, raise your hands. If you're voting yes, raise your hands. Is there a cake or something? Right, 39 in favor, those opposed? Are you voting no? Okay. Those opposed? 0 abstaining, 0 for cause, 0 that carries 39 to 0 to 0 to 0.
Okay, I want to do one totally administrative thing. There's a typo on the resolution sheet and on the resolutions themselves for one of the items. And so I want to just take care of that now. It's not item 14, which is the last of the second bundle that we will be doing. It should be, the address is 328 West 108. And somehow the agenda was incorrect. We corrected it in our minutes in the informal resolutions, but so just correct that. The next thing I'm going to say is that we only have images tonight for the 2 items that are the last 2 where I'm going to present them separately. They have not yet been before Landmarks. Everything else, again, will indulge us to move this along. So the first bundle that we created is items 8 through 11, and they were 2 window master plans. There were 2 window master plans, and then 2 sort of building-specific window modifications, all of which we have approved. So we are asking that for items 8, 9, 10, and 11, that you, we've approved them all. We'd like to bundle them, and if you vote a yes, it's yes to approve all 4 of those, which is 8, 9, 10, and 11.
All those in favor, raise your hands.
Items 8 through 11, everyone on your vote for bundle.
I have 38 in favor, opposed, 0 abstaining, 1 for cause, 1, that carries 38 to 0 to 1 to 0.
Okay, the next three, and we have some speakers on these, but I'm gonna first, on 32 West 76th Street. The three next items we're bundling are 12, 13, and 14. They're all, row house modifications. They've got facade work in the front, they've got rear yard additions in the back, and in all three cases, we sort of had a combination within of approve the front, possibly, and disapprove the rear unless certain modifications were made. I'm not going to go into the details of them. All of them were ruled landmarks and,
All three have been before landmarks, and all three were approved unanimously.
In spite of what we said.
In spite of what we said.
They are voted on,
Right. They've been voted on by landmarks, and they voted approved.
However, we do have two public speakers who waited patiently, and so first I'm going to call Renata Lundini and then Joe Florence.
She's the only who's permitted to meet.
Okay, so please, you got your 2 minutes. This is related to 32 West 76th Street, which.
Thank you very much. Again, Joseph Polanos, President of West 76th Street Park Block Association. There's an issue that I'm concerned before I say this, is that when LPC calendars after a committee hearing and before a general meeting, it really is a very unfair practice in that it eliminates the community's second chance to talk and convince or maybe just support. And on the 13th of August, I was at the committee hearing, and I appreciate the committee, the Preservation Committee's understanding of what the peril of this application is, in that 32 West 76th Street, the developer is proposing and has been approved by the Department of Buildings the excavation of 13 feet below the cellar level of a brownstone. Now, the reason why this is so important is because in both venues, on the 18th of August, I was at LPC also, and I saw them basically steamroll through the resolution as presented by the committee. Now, the problem with that is that unlike any other developer or any other block where somebody would want to excavate under a brownstone, it really wouldn't be a big concern. However, if you notice our block between Columbus and Central Park West and West 76th Street, these are stream maps that were done by a civic engineer in the turn of the century called Egbert DL. On these maps, you show that there's a stream that comes out of Central Park West at 74th Street, moves northwest through the corner of 75th, and onto our block, 76th Street between Columbus and Central Park West. It moves westward toward mid-block and then turns north around 35 West 76th. Now, the first big problem that we had was back in '09 when a fire truck fell into a sinkhole in front of 39 West 76th Street. This was directly caused by the erosion that's occurring as a result of the street under the block. I'm almost finished. There have been 7 events in the last 5 years, including a sinkhole in front of the proposed location, 32 West 76th Street, as recent as May 1st of this year. That caused, that's 40 feet, less than 40 feet away from the excavation. I respectfully implore you to reject this excavation in this building because the people and residents of our block are scared. There's no reason why a whim of a developer should jeopardize the safety of our neighborhood.
Okay, so thank you. One of the things that this is brought, this is a condition that's not unique to this project. It is a condition that's of concern. It unfortunately doesn't have bearing on the reasonable appropriateness or not of the renovation, although we did vote to disapprove, in spite of the fact that they're after the fact landmarks did. That's one of the things we're trying to do is advocate for landmarks giving us more time.
Right, both bodies.
And that's, but sir, we have so much stuff to cover right now.
I know,
That's why I just want to
now
bring it up. And we met twice.
We're happy to, if you want to submit anything that's written for the record, we're happy to take that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I want to go over again what we're going to be voting on in bundling, items 12, 13, and 14. So item 12, which is this house, 32 West 76. We voted item A, stair bulkhead, rooftop addition, we voted to approve. The second part, modification to the rear facade and rear yard, which involves excavation work and modification and structuring, we voted to disapprove unless a whole bunch of changes. 270 West 77th Street was again voted to disapprove unless. And lastly, 328 West 108. The front facade, I think we had one recommendation, but we voted to approve because they said they would change, keep the stained glass, and we voted to disapprove unless they made certain modifications to the rear facade. So it's a combination of yeses and nos, but we'd like to bundle the whole thing. And so I'll vote yes to support whatever we did in those. It's really 5 different spots you have to put a mark in.
Okay, so it's 12 through 12
Through 14.
Okay, but it's 12A is one vote, B is another.
And quickly to confirm, over here, Brian, the project that the gentleman spoke to was, he did vote to disapprove.
Committee voted, we, like your committee, there were 2 parts.
Sure.
The part that, we disapproved the modifications to the rear facade and the rear yard, which encompassed the proposed excavation.
Okay, great.
So we disapproved that part.
Although truthfully, the grounds for it were based on what they were doing design-wise.
Can I ask a favor and a question? I'm going to go with you, but I have experience on 32 West 76 because I worked with the previous owner. We restored the copper bay window and the stoop. When we restored the stoop, we discovered that it was floating away from the building and that there was very little you could do. So I suggest to help this owner that perhaps we can craft a letter, even though they have an SOE engineer that supported excavation. And I looked at the DOB application. I think safeguarding cultural heritage is not only about approving C of A, and maybe in this case, we could say, given the documentation, if you would share that with the community board, there's a very tidy little letter, and we just broadcast to everyone at the DOB. And I think that goes a long way, because the problem is we're going to have this problem with every new construction, with all the new historic fabric and cultural heritage we're trying to protect. Andrew had it in his house, I had it in my house next door. It's going to be systemic until the buildings department wakes up and starts looking at historic buildings differently than building in Lower Manhattan. So I think this is a poster child of this. So I would advocate, I'm going to abstain because I don't feel I should, but I think it's the letter. Yeah. I think the letter is.
Yeah, we can work with you on that, but and you answered what I was going to say. The letter has to go to DOB. I was at the hearing at Landmarks Commission, the chair specifically said on behalf of all the commissioners that they were satisfied that the structural engineer's evaluation and report was sufficient. They had no problem with it.
Yeah, but you're not qualified.
I agree with you.
And I think this is happening everywhere in New York.
But the target has to be DOB.
Yeah, and I hope that will help allow the big goal, but it puts this issue squarely, because Andrew and I are itching to do this letter, right? Itching.
And we would love.
And we accept your vote, you and Andrew volunteered.
Okay, so.
Okay, so all.
Why aren't there any visuals up on this?
Because these, in order to streamline this process, we have chosen to only show the visuals for the 2 that we're going to discuss that have not come before DOB. I mean, okay.
All those in favor? I have 37 opposed, 0 abstaining,
Hey, you just want to abstain on.
2 abstaining for cause, 0. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so this actually has a visual. This is the first of 2. This is 320 West 101. And what you're looking at now, and this is the best we have, is the street facade of our building, the building 320 West 101 within the block. It is the one that seems to have a little like mark, a bubble up at the top. And so this involves, like most, front facade restoration work, window replacement, and then we'll go to the back and see the rear yard addition modifications. So in this, the committee committee voted to support the very well prepared front facade restoration work and the various kinds of window replacement. There was one exception. Can you look at the next slide? I'm not sure if I have. Okay, so this is a detail, and I can't see because of your head, the lower floor. No, I think can you go one more to the next one and then we'll see. No, okay, very simply, the ground floor had the upper floor, sorry, the parlor floor. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll see, even if you can't make it out, there are two double hung windows, and then there's a skinny line of transom, which is actually a very beautiful stained glass. And they proposed to replace it with just two double hungs. And the committee said, everything else is fine, but we really want you to keep the stained glass there, and they did agree to that. So let's now go to the rear facade, please. The next one, please. So this is the existing addition, which is existing little half-width rear yard additions. And the next slide, please. And so now you can see the change. And so it's a slightly less protruding full-width rear yard addition. And we felt that in designing a proposed law, it may not be the same, it's not inconsistent with other things we've approved, with a couple of modifications. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say we're disapproving it unless. The top floor has a row of windows in line with the rear facade that really typically we ask for what are called punched openings, rather than a line of windows that looks like the contemporary groupings below. In the original fabric of the building, we asked them to retain the punched opening. So the rear yard facade for that, for both reasons, the roof we asked disapprove unless they make these modifications. Any questions? I'm sorry. So all of supporting this resolution is to disapprove unless, and this is not compromise.
All those in favor?
320 West 101.
Item 38, opposed? 0, abstaining? 0 for cause? 0.
Okay, so the next one, can we go, oh, can people see that?
I can.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
If people want to see the design, you should feel free to walk over it.
So this is actually a pair of row houses that were combined years ago. It's 324 to 326 West 108. And interestingly, the building 328 West 108, which is the one I had to correct on your sheet, was also before us that same day. We disapproved unless, and then it got approved at landmarks. So this is a pair of row houses that have been combined into a healthcare facility. And now it's being taken back into residential use, but as a multi-family dwelling. And so there's facade restoration work, window replacement work. Can you go to the next slide, please? So what are we going to do? It's not coming up. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's still very good. I gotta go with this. Okay, so there are all different kinds of fenestration, all kinds of different fenestration. Oh, okay. Fenestration pattern that is going to be replaced in the building on the upper levels with existing in kind of it's historically appropriate. The lower two levels, they have the two buildings have separate kinds of grill details, and they're going to be using one front door for the whole building. When they came to us, had two different sets of vocabularies, and we recommended that they actually replace one of the designs with the grill, retain one of the designs of the original grill work. And so what they agreed to do is to take this grill design, which they were going to remove, and keep it. So the proposal on the front facade, we actually approved with the modifications that they were willing to do. The rear facade now, let's go to the next. Okay, this is just showing a cross section of the building, just to give you an idea of the rooftop addition and the mass. Next. Okay, so this is the bulk of the building, and we're going to have some speakers on this anyway. These are the two buildings. There's a line that's kept in the middle to show the distinction between the two buildings. The existing rear yard additions, which are two little halves, and this is the proposal, which is to make 4 stories of full width rear yard additions in line with the building next door, which is Landmark's just approved. And then slightly set back, the 5th floor, and then the rooftop additions. And our committee had a number of concerns about this. And I'm now going to go back and refer to mine. Okay, so the concerns about it were that the massing of the rooftop was particularly of concern to us, but also the cantilever balconies, which you can't really make out unless you go up to the thing, but there's balconies and cantilever out with glass railings, and we just felt that none of it felt consistent and appropriate to the neighborhood. In fact, we've gotten drawings after the fact where they've tried to show us that they're making things better, but in fact ended up having to turn those balconies into fire escapes and second means of egress, which has only in fact made the back look more muddled. And so we could not approve this, and so we were disapproved. Now, before we take other questions, I have a number of people who are here to speak, so I'm going to call on. First is Seema Carrazzo.
Yes. I'll give my time to
Oh, okay. And then Nina Alahi.
She just had to leave.
Okay, Barbara Schuler.
My name is Barbara Shore. My name is Barbara Shore, and I live at 329 West 108th Street, directly across the street from these 3 buildings that we'll talk about, the 2 that are most eastern. I'm on the 6th and 7th floor, and I have a picture here of now what my bedroom stare at, so I can pass that around. In addition, the mass of what they've built to show the landmarks. I'm glad that they're redoing the building. It's very nice, but they are directly across the street from my apartment. And the light and the ratio of rooftop to space is fine, but I was told last time at the meeting that it was going to be a 32-foot tall extension. And that's massive. That is just a massive, and I would just want it to be reduced. The building most western, I don't know, I think it's 328, has been approved. It's lovely, it's large, but it doesn't obliterate all of the light and everything that I see and everyone to the front of my building sees. It really affects the community around us, because even if there are terraces down the hall, down 2-3 blocks away, we still hear them. It's a very quiet neighborhood. And to have more folks and the terraces in the back and how that affects the folks on 107th Street is really upsetting. And I just want to make sure that we hold the developer to the things that I heard him promise in the last meeting, which was to reduce the bulk, to try to change things. And since then, they built, I will stop in a second, since then they built the pictures that I'm circulating, and it seems large and in charge, and I just don't think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. So then Paula Snow. And after that last will be Roscoe.
I also give my time to Paula.
Okay, great, perfect, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paula Donalo. I'm on the board of North Foundation, which is one of the landmark buildings on that building directly next to the proposed development. And we'd like to say that we are always welcoming developers and new and beneficial additions to the neighborhood, but we feel that this particular project is very massive on top, and at the back is also more intrusive than the original plan. If you recall, there were the problems with balconies that were referenced in the resolution, and I believe that it was discussed that they would possibly reduce the balconies and make them into Juliet balconies. Now the entire back is totally intrusive with like fire escapes running, and the balconies are even larger than originally proposed. And also the structure on top is massive and it's definitely not appropriate to the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood. And none of that has been reduced, and it is oppressive. It actually blocks the views from both sides of the building, and it actually is suffocating the landmark that the building that is a part of is the North Foundation. And because it's so high, it blocks all the sun. It literally, and the balconies crowd the building, so it's overwhelming. In addition, we believe there's going to be a lot of noise based on the rear yard addition with all the balconies, etc. And in addition, as we said, the sunlight is going to be blocked totally from the sunroom, and basically it is out of context, not only on the rooftop, but in the back of all the different buildings behind that yard. It is totally out of context with the historic nature of the buildings on that block and the entire historic district. So we would like to call your attention to the fact, and I'm sure you're aware, that the new proposal actually made the backyard rear addition worse, and nothing was done to the massive rooftop addition. So we ask that you disapprove this project.
And basically, we heard what the community said at the meeting, and our committee also felt that, and that's why our resolution, which I mean has to be on what they presented, not on the new things, although we have seen it and know that it has gotten worse, not better, but we said it's disapprove unless they reduce the bulk on the rooftops and also the mass of the rooftop at the bulk of the balconies. So a vote to approve our resolution is to disapprove.
Yeah, just a quick point that hasn't been raised is that this is another example of digging out a trench into the backyard that actually, in my view, violates or at least encroaches upon what's supposed to be the 30-foot setback. If you'll notice on the western side of the axiomatic that's on that, there's a staircase down to a lower level. So they're trying to advocate you to by making I think we talked about this last meeting, having a cellar function as a basement. And I think we should hold the line at the building line.
I should point out that we're having two votes, A and B. A is for the front of the building, which is to approve the front facade work, and the B is for rear yard, disapproving the rooftop and the rear yard.
Okay, for the front facade, all those in favor? And 37, opposed? Are you opposed? 0, abstaining? 1, for pause? 0? That was 37-0 to 1-0. And now for the rear yard work?
And the rooftop addition.
And the rooftop addition. All those in favor of disapproving? And 36, opposed? 0, abstaining? 0 for cause? 0, 36 to 0 to 0 to 0.
Thank you, Katie, for your tremendously hard work the past 2 meetings.
And just so you guys know, our committee meeting in October, we're having our committee meeting this in 2 days, September. Our October meeting, because Jay and I both have to be out of town on the 8th, we moved it up to October 1st, which means it's actually for 4 full boards.
Which means you may not have a November.
Well, but the report in October will be for September.
Right. Okay, so stay tuned and check the website. Claria, Parks and Environment.
Yeah, so we have a nifty playground reconstruction at West 84th Street, and if they're still up for it, guest presenters Ken Coughlin and Misha Hunter Burkett will present.
Okay, this is called Mariners Playground, which is on Central Park West, off of Central Park West, between 84th and 85th Streets. We're looking at it obviously from the aerial view. And we can go to the next slide, I think. This is how it looked right after it was built in 1936. One of Robert Lewis's perimeter playgrounds in the park. And this is how it looks today. And it's in need of an upgrade, as a lot of the reconstructions, a lot of the playgrounds are. One of the main things that the upgrade is going to do is make it ADA accessible. There's going to be a different entrance, a little bit to the south of the existing one, and the ramp is going to be a 1 to 12 ADA ramp. So we go to the next slide. And this shows the various activity areas. The playground is going to maintain its same dimensions. One of the other big changes is the fence. We've moved away from the idea that we have to have big, large fences guarding our playgrounds, and the fence is going to be reduced so it's more integrated with the rest of the park and less visible. And more pleasing to the eye. And next. And this is just, I don't know what this is. It's a nice water. I think that's the last slide. So if we approve it, construction, the Center Park Conservancy is paying for this. It's going to start in the fall of this year and cost $1.5 million.
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to say is that the Spectre Playground, which many people may know already, exists just next door. And so this one is geared towards really young children. And there were some community members who came more concerned that it was not inclusive of older children, but it's so close to the other more age-appropriate playground that we thought that it was still appropriate as presented. And we particularly liked the due diligence effort from the Conservancy about the historic research that they did and bringing back some features from that Moses era design. So we were very supportive. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick question. How long will the renovation take? Like how long will the program take?
About 9 months. Yeah.
I would just add that I guess we don't have a slide, I thought we did, but there are some really nifty, pointy-headed playhouses that were not historic. They are sort of reconstructions of historical structures from the 1940s, really, in similar playgrounds. Not documented in this playground, but in similar ones from the same era, and they're just really kind of cute.
I agree, Claire, really cool. So let's just, vote yes. Don't be shy.
Other question?
All those in favor? We have 35 opposed. 0 abstaining. 0 for cause. 0, 35 to 0 to 0 to 0.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is number 18. This is a protective disapproval. They didn't show it on E. Can we show
And we call the question.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Reminder,
33 opposed? 1 abstaining? 0 for cause? 0.
Just one last thing, something very exciting is happening next Sunday at 1 p.m. 11th Avenue, 34th Street, New York's 469th transit station will open. So it's very exciting when the transit system expands. Next Sunday, 1 p.m.
Okay, one final item, it came to the steering committee meeting, the steering committee in July. This is 2 requests for leaves of absence. We have one public speaker, and I know we also have a board member who would like to speak, so.
Secretary Alan Flax. Shall I spell anything for you?
We have to start here.
Yeah. First, Paige used the word conundrum in speaking, and I don't think half of you know what that word means. I'm shocked to find so many of you people here staying so late because you are a community planning and zoning board and you're attentive to your duty. The only thing I want to say to you, to the steering committee issues, is that you're still not in compliance with the state law applicable to community boards, that written materials must be sent to those requests. And you used to send out over 1,000 items to the general public, 1,000 people. When 4 of us want to get the agenda in the mail before the meeting, as it used to be sent out a week before, you can't do 4. And the pea brain response I get from Caputo down to the secretary, she's responsible, she's their manager, is, oh, it's not the final agenda. You send it out unfinalized or tentative or subject to change. Strangely, 10 seconds, the New York City Board of Elections, patronage and not under mayoral control, totally full of political patronage, they send out election results and say uncertified. They could keep it from you for 30 days until they give the final certification at the end of 30 days. But within hours, and even sooner now with use of electronic tablets, they send it out and say uncertified results. You should do no less. And Christine Quinn came here as speaker and said, I restored the funding. You have the time, and you have the staff, and you have the money to send out the agenda a week before by U.S. mail. 49 cents for 4 people who I can speak of and would like to get it. And why do the board members do it? One thing was that we're subjunctive contrary to fact. I am a board member. I bring an action to the state Supreme Court to compel you to comply with the law that requires you to send things out in writing. And the judges, if you check the case notes, you can say it all, uphold it, even if they say, well, it's not they minute, there's only one person. You have to do it. And that costs $4,000 to $8,000 would be litigation from court counsel office, taken from your budget.
Alan, thank you. We're going to move on now.
Move on, but you're here really to hear from the public. As much as handling zoning.
Thanks, Alan. Brian, I think you had a comment about the steering committee resolution.
Yeah, so just a quick comment on the request for leaves of absence. These are requests for 2 additional leaves. They've already been granted 1 leave. I've come to the position, I guess, that members of the board should only be granted 1 leave of absence. This is not a comment on Lillian or Mark, but these aren't their seats, they're the community seats, and if you're not able to fulfill your duties for very extended periods of time, you should resign and a replacement should be appointed. So I will be voting no.
So you're allowed to have to serve to receive 2 leaves of absence, and they can be in succession. So
they are 3 months each.
3 months each, and you can have up to 2. So I think Brian's point is that if you have a 2-year term, that's effectively 1/4 of your tenure on the board is taken up by leaves of absence. So we've discussed this, and we feel it's something that's an important item that could be discussed in an upcoming steering committee meeting. We have a vote tonight, which I think we should this is not personalized to Lillian and Mark, and make sure that's clear, but I think there are other people who have concerns about the leave of absence policy, and it's worth discussing at a steering committee.
Okay, so the fact that this is important enough to discuss at a steering committee meeting, the vote tonight is this before the policy changes or?
There's been no policy change at this point.
Elizabeth, is the 2 consecutive 3-month leaves, a board rule, or is it a city charter rule, or?
We listen to the city charter, our bylaws expert, I think, has left.
Board.
She's here. Roberta?
If the chair can decide, to
Board.
accept or not accept, and you can have up to 2, 3 months.
The bylaws?
So it's
Discretion. It's discretionary, but no more than 2 3-month leaves.
But, I mean, is the discretion of the
Right,
chair?
and I've never had an issue up to now, I mean, I can understand if you bring up some very interesting good points, but I've never had an issue with having to.
So we should bring that up in.
Sure.
You got turned on.
And are we gonna have to speak for the line?
All right, okay. Just to counter that point, there are people on the board that have served many years on the board, not just 2, and 6 months might be a quarter of 1 term. You really don't want to penalize someone who served for, in the case of Mark, I don't know, 12 years, 10 years, I don't know how many he's been on the board.
200.
But in the long run, 6 months as a maximum is a fairly reasonable thing, not to take someone off the board who's really served for a number of years and whose experience is quite valuable to the board. We have some term limits, and I think that they're reasonable.
Okay, I think these are important points, and I think we're discussing at a steering committee meeting. Again, there has been no policy change, so we're, if someone wants to call the question.
Okay, all those in favor of granting the leaves?
Special action.
531 in favor, those opposed? 2 abstaining, 0 opposed, 0. So they.
Okay, thanks everyone. Motion to adjourn. Okay, one quick announcement just before everyone takes off. We are going to participate in the street fair again this year, the Columbus Avenue Street Fair, which is taking place on September 20th. You'll be getting an email from me about folks who want to join us at the street fair to help promote Community Board 7. It's really fun. So you all will join us again this year. And just a final reminder to check the board website for updates to calendars. There are a lot of date changes throughout the month of September and October. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.